The Green Sea Cloud Pavilion was considered a first-rate faction in the Green Fire world. During this period, there were a total of 18 divine masters and 3 divine emperors. It was even rumored that there was a great emperor behind the Green Sea Cloud Pavilion. After Yi Chen charged into the Green Sea Cloud Pavilion, the 3 divine emperors of the Green Sea Cloud Pavilion, many divine masters, including the Purple Heaven Divine Emperor, joined forces to kill Yi Chen. However, they never expected that Yi Chen alone would be able to wipe out all the cultivators above the Divine Master realm in the Green Sea Cloud Pavilion. 18 divine masters and 3 divine emperors were all killed by him. Furthermore, regardless of whether it was a divine lord or a divine emperor, they were unable to receive Yi Chen's strike head-on. In other words, Yi Chen was able to kill a divine emperor with a single strike. One had to know that Yi Chen was only at the Divine Master realm. He could kill a divine emperor with a single strike in the Divine Emperor realm. One could imagine how amazing Yi Chen's swordsmanship was. Therefore, this matter caused quite a stir in the Green Fire world. Of course, this matter also reached Jian Wushuang's ears. A quiet bamboo forest was where Jian Nantian and Ji Wuming usually lived. Father, mother! Jian Wushuang came to Jian Nantian and Ji Wuming. Shuang you're here. Jian Nantian glanced at Jian Wushuang and said, "Look at that little guy. Has his swordsmanship met your requirements?" Jian Wushuang immediately looked at the lake in front of him. There was a black-robed young man sitting cross-legged on the lake. His body was obviously condensed with extraordinary sword essence, but the lake water around him did not have any ripples. It was as if the black-robed young man, including his sword essence, was just a feather that landed on the lake. His control of sword essence has reached the point of returning to its original state. Not bad. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. It seems that this little guy has not wasted the past 8 years. Jian Nantian also smiled. Since you left that sword in his mind 8 years ago, he has been focusing all his energy on the study of swordsmanship. In the first 3 years, he made no progress at all. He did not even manage to find any mysteries in the swordsmanship. It was not until the 4th year that he saw some things in the swordsmanship. Since then, his swordsmanship has begun to improve. Did he really develop it all by himself? Father, didn't you give him some pointers? Jian Wushuang looked at Jian Nantian with interest. My understanding of sword principle is limited by the heaven and earth, so it's not very strong. I also don't understand your sword, so how can I give him some pointers? I only gave him some suggestions based on my own experience. It's up to him to comprehend the profound mysteries, Jian Nantian said. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. I can see that he has made great progress in sword principle in the past 8 years. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to kill the Divine Emperor head-on, one by one in the Divine Emperor realm. Has he met your requirements? Jian Nantian asked. He is far from meeting my requirements. However, he has made great progress in sword principle in the past 8 years. His talent in sword principle is indeed impressive. With his special physique, he is qualified to be my in-name disciple, Jian Wushuang said. Only in-name disciple? Jian Nantian frowned. Father, don't fight for this little guy. Although he is only an in-name disciple, I will still teach him some things and give him some appropriate tests. When he has truly completed my test, I will truly accept him as my personal disciple. After all, my requirements for accepting disciples are very strict, Jian Wushuang said with a smile. He had been a person for 2 lifetimes and had taken in disciples before. For example, he had taken in Lin Lan in the Green Fire world. However, Lin Lan was his early disciple after all. Moreover, she was born in the ancient world, so her potential was not great. This eternal chaotic world was already the end for her. If she wanted to obtain some achievements in the divine beginning realm, it was almost impossible. However, he had taken quite good care of this disciple. Even now, he had personally taught Lin Lan some things. However, because he had met Lin Lan this time and clearly realized the completely different level between him and Lin Lan, he felt that he had to be very careful when taking in disciples. It was not necessary to say that his disciple must be able to keep up with his pace, or at least not be too different from him. The gap between Lin Lan and him was too big. Now, Yi Chun had the innate terminated meridians first, and his talent in sword principle was really great. That was why Jian Wushuang had considered taking him as an in-name disciple. It's not bad to be able to become an in-name disciple. I'll tell him the news now, Jian Nantian said. Don't worry. Jian Wushuang waved his hand. Let him continue in his current state and study for 2 more years. After 2 years, when the tenure deadline is up, you can tell him about this. In addition, bring him to the Wushuang Saint Realm in 10 years. I plan to bring him to the Divine Beginning Realm. Is he going to the Divine Beginning Realm too? Jian Nanshan's expression changed. With his current strength, he is still far from being able to establish himself in the Divine Beginning Realm. However, everything has to be done step by step. It was the same when I first arrived in the Divine Beginning Realm. At that time, I will arrange a place for him to rely on his own ability to improve himself step by step. I won't interfere too much with him. As for how far he can grow in the future, it's up to him, Jian Wushuang said. Yes. Jian Nantian and Ji Wuming nodded slightly. They did have some feelings for Yi Chun, which was why they cared so much about him. However, it was up to Jian Wushuang to decide how to settle Yi Chun. Jian Wushuang left quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 2 years passed. The tenure deadline had finally arrived. The Wushuang Saint Realm had long become the focus of the entire eternal chaotic world. There were a large number of experts in the eternal chaotic world, mainly the emperors who stood at the top. There were about 200 to 300 people gathered in the void on the left. As for the void on the right, there were also quite a number of experts left behind by the 7-star mysterious sect. They were all gathered here, waiting for Jian Wushuang to appear. He's coming. No one knew who was the first to speak, but everyone looked toward the void in front of them and saw dozens of figures flying toward them. The leader was Jian Wushuang. There were Jian Nantian, Ji Wuming, Wang Yuan, Su Rou, Yi Chun, who had become Jian Wushuang's in-name disciple, and many others who wanted to go to the Divine Beginning Realm with them. Is everyone here? Jian Wushuang stood in the center of the crowd and glanced at the people around him. Everyone who has woken up from the 7-star mysterious sect camp is already here, Xianxia said. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He controlled the heavenly Tao of the eternal chaotic world and knew everything about it like the back of his hand. Indeed, all the experts from the 7-star mysterious sect camp had woken up. The remaining ones were either seriously injured or had been asleep for too long due to the lack of spiritual power. As a result, they could never wake up. Besides the 7-star mysterious sect, the people from the other camp seemed to have also received the news. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly and looked at the void. There were also many figures in the void. These people were obviously not indigenous experts of the eternal chaotic world, but they did not stand together with the 7-star mysterious sect. Instead, they could keep a distance from the people of the 7-star mysterious sect. They were even full of vigilance against the experts of the 7-star mysterious sect. The people of the 7-star mysterious sect looked at these people with hostility. Jian Wushuang immediately understood that these people were from the 3 Saint Realm camps who had stayed in the eternal chaotic world after the battle. During the battle, the 7-star divine realm was completely sealed. Many people from the 3 Saint Realm camps did not have time to escape from the 7-star divine realm and were left behind. When Jian Wushuang was wandering in the eternal chaotic world, he had met and even fought with these people. Later, because the 3 masters of the Saint Realm opened the temporary passage, some people left proudly. However, there were still many people who stayed here and did not wake up until now. Tens of millions of years later, they slowly woke up because of the recovery of the spiritual qi in the eternal chaotic world. 10 years ago, the news that Jian Wushuang was about to open the passage to the divine beginning realm caused an unprecedented sensation in the highest level of the eternal chaotic world. These people had also received the news, and now they had rushed here naturally. They also wanted to return to the divine beginning realm through the passage. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang's figure flashed, and he directly came in front of the group of people. Did you belong to the 3 Saint Realm camps during the battle? Jian Wushuang stared at the group of people with a cold expression. Their expressions changed. The brown-haired elder in the lead smiled awkwardly and said, Yes, we belong to the three Saint Realm camps, but most of us joined them out of helplessness. I know a little about your helplessness, so I won't pursue the matter with you. Since you're here now to leave this world and return to the divine beginning realm, I'll help you, Jian Wushuang said. Thank you, sir. The leading brown-haired elder was so grateful. The dozens of cultivators behind the brown-haired elder were also pleasantly surprised. Although I promised to let you go, there is only one passage and there are too many of you. I can't send you off at once. How about this? You will be divided into 3 teams according to your origin and enter the passage according to my instructions later, Jian Wushuang said. It's all up to you, sir. Although the brown-haired old man was a genuine principles master, he could see the insurmountable gap between him and Jian Wushuang at a glance. Therefore, when he faced Jian Wushuang, he was in awe. In that battle, in addition to the 3 Saint Realms, the 4 divine clans and the octagonal heaven sect joined the 3 Saint Realms. Now, according to what I said, everyone from the octagonal heaven sect will stand on this side. Jian Wushuang pointed to the void on the left. Immediately, nearly half of the dozens of figures walked to the void that Jian Wushuang pointed to. Oh, there are quite a lot of people from the 8 Directions celestial sect. Jian Wushuang smiled, but he was not surprised. Although the 3 Saint Realms were the main force in the world-destroying battle, the 3 Saint Realms relied heavily on top experts. As for the weaker cultivators who acted as cannon fodder, most of them came from the 4 divine clans and the 8 Directions celestial sect. Among them, the 8 Directions celestial sect had the largest number of participants. Everyone from the 4 divine races, stand here. Jian Wushuang pointed to the void on the right. Immediately, more than a dozen figures walked to the void on the right. There were still more than a dozen cultivators who remained there. These people were neither from the 8 Directions celestial sect nor the 4 divine races, so their origins. The rest of you are from the 3 Saint Realms? Jian Wushuang looked down at the dozen figures. Yes, sir. Among us, 6 are from the Life and Death Saint Realm, 4 are from the Destruction Saint Realm, and 3 are from the Flame Saint Realm, one of the Peak Saints said. Oh, really? Jian Wushuang smiled, but his smile was as cold as a blade. Since you all come from the 3 Saint Realms, I hereby announce, as the actual controller of this world, that all 13 of you will be sentenced to death. What? The 13 cultivators from the 3 Saint Realms were all shocked. However, Jian Wushuang did not pay any attention to their expressions. He had already announced the death penalty the moment he announced it. Jian Wushuang did not need to use many methods to completely refine this world. He had complete control over the will of this world's heavenly Tao, so he could freely unleash his strongest battle strength in this world. With a wave of his sleeve, a wisp of divine power swept out. The wisp of divine power swept across the 13 people like a breeze. In an instant, their divine bodies were blown into pieces like paper. There was no room for them to struggle. Before they could even let out a scream, they were all killed by Jian Wushuang. This scene caused the expressions of the surrounding people to change drastically. The people from the 8 Directions celestial sect and the 4 divine clans standing on the left and right sides of the void were especially shocked. After all, they were the lackeys of the 3 Saint Realms in the previous battle. Now that Jian Wushuang had killed the people of the 3 Saint Realms, would they still be alive? Sir, we really had no choice in that battle. Sir, please be magnanimous and spare our lives. The brown-haired elder, who had reached the level of a principles master, knelt down to Jian Wushuang on the spot. As a principles master, he no longer cared about his dignity in order to save his life. Since the principles masters were like this, the others immediately began to beg for mercy. Get up! Jian Wushuang put his hands behind his back and looked coldly at these people who were begging for mercy. I only want to kill the 3 Saint Realms. As for the 4 divine clans and the 8 Directions celestial sect, I won't pursue it. After I open the passage, you can leave. After saying that, Jian Wushuang ignored them and left. Seeing Jian Wushuang leave, they let out a long sigh. Mr. Xianxia, and everyone from the 7-star mysterious sect. Jian Wushuang came to the 7-star mysterious sect and said, Before opening the passage to the divine beginning realm, I have to tell you something. What is it? Xianxia looked at him. The fourth heaven, where the seven-star divine realm used to be, has become completely desolate because of the operation of the world array. It's completely isolated from the other territories of the divine beginning realm. Therefore, even if you return to the divine beginning realm now, it's impossible for you to return to the fourth heaven, Jian Wushuang said. The fourth heaven has been completely destroyed? Hearing this news, the people of the seven-star mysterious sect found it hard to accept. But don't worry. Although you can't go to the fourth heaven, I will arrange a new place for you so that the seven-star mysterious sect can make a comeback, Jian Wushuang said. Where to? Xianxia asked. The third heaven, the nest of the three saint realms. Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. What? Everyone from the seven-star mysterious sect was stunned. The taciturn Di Shirsan frowned. He said, Jian Wushuang, although the seven-star mysterious sect has a blood feud with the three saint realms, all the experts under the seven-star mysterious sect want to uproot the three saint realms and turn the three saint realm masters into ashes. However, there are only these people left in our seven-star mysterious sect. Each of them has been asleep for too long, so they are still at their weakest. If we go to confront the three saint realms now, it would be like hitting a rock with an egg. The experts of the seven-star mysterious sect agreed with Di Shirsan's words. Now, the remaining top experts of the seven-star mysterious sect were all here, and they were all at their weakest stage. Even if they went to the divine beginning realm, they would not be able to fully recover in a short time. Even if they were able to fully recover, facing the three saint realms, they would have no choice but to flee in embarrassment. Naturally, they could not face the three saint realms head-on now. Everyone, the reason why I said that I would place you in the third heaven, in the nest of the three saint realms, is because soon, today, the day you return to the divine beginning realm, the three saint realms will no longer exist, Jian Wushuang said. When he said this, everyone from the seven-star mysterious sect, including the cultivators from the four divine clans and the eight directions celestial sect, turned pale with fright. Jian Wushuang, do you mean that you really intend to completely destroy the three saint realms? Xianxia looked at Jian Wushuang in shock. Can't I? Jian Wushuang glanced at Xianxia. Yes, but the three saint realms are not weak. Even at the peak of our seven-star mysterious sect, the three saint realms can fight us head-on. Now that our seven-star mysterious sect has been destroyed for so many years, the three saint realms must be the strongest in the divine beginning realm. Their accumulated strength must be even stronger. Besides, the three masters of the saint realm are supported by the will of the heavenly Tao. Any one of them can be said to be invincible in the divine beginning realm. Even the rulers can't do anything to them. With such strength, how can we destroy them? Xianxia asked. How to destroy the three saint realms? Don't worry. I'll let you see it with your own eyes. Jian Wushuang just smiled faintly and did not explain much. Everyone, please wait here for a moment. Let me go to the divine beginning realm to make arrangements. With that, Jian Wushuang waved his hand and disappeared into the world. In the fourth heaven, the huge magic formation was still there and was still slowly operating. Heaven-cleaving Alliance Master and Temporal Temple Master had also been waiting there. Although Jian Wushuang had stayed in the Eternal Chaotic World for a full 10 years, the flow of time in the Eternal Chaotic World was completely different from that in the Divine Beginning Realm. 10 years had passed in the Eternal Chaotic World, but only a month had passed in the Divine Beginning Realm. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang rushed out of the formation and appeared in front of Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and Temporal Temple Master. My young friend, you've come out so quickly. Have you seen your relatives? Temporal Temple Master said with a smile. I've seen them all. Jian Wushuang nodded with a smile. Temporal, Heaven-Cleaving. Have you prepared what I asked you to prepare? Don't worry. After receiving your message, I, Xianxia, and Desolate Emperor immediately gave the order to prepare. So far, the Heavenly Cleaving Alliance, the Temporal Temple, and the Divine Ancestor Taoist sect have all been prepared. As soon as you give the order, all the principals masters of the three freedom alliances will lead countless saints to attack the third heaven. In addition, there are 6 sects in the 8 directions celestial sect who are willing to stand on the side of the three freedom alliances. They have also formed an army of 100,000 saints led by dozens of principles masters. They will act as soon as we make a move. And your good friend, Demon Master Qinhua, has more than 10 powerful forces under his command, including the Purple Blood Sect, the Supreme Emotion Valley, and the Icefire Devil Palace. They are ready to form an allied army and attack together. The eyes of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and the Temporal Temple Master were burning with passion. What about the 4 divine races? Shower hasn't taken control of the other 3 divine races. Jian Wushuang asked. I've asked them myself. The 9 clan leaders now have the battle strength of an expert in the pinnacle of the 6th realm. Together with the strength of their subordinates, their overall strength has completely surpassed that of the 2-3 divine races. Since I received your message, I immediately asked the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance to secretly send some experts to help them. Just now, we had finished the final battle with the 3 divine races. Now that the battle has ended, the 9-tailed clan leader should have completely taken control of the other 3 divine races and even the entire demon realm. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master said. That's great. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. He said in a deep voice, the 3 saint realms have existed for too long and are deeply rooted. It's not easy to destroy them all at once. That's why we must gather all our strength and not give the 3 saint realms any chance. Yes, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and the Temporal Temple Master also nodded heavily. Then, Jian Wushuang waved his hand, and the huge ceiling formation in front of them shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. Finally, it completely merged with Jian Wushuang's body. A fierce light flashed in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Let's go! Demon Realm. Corpses littered the ground on the huge battlefield. The decisive battle between the 9-tailed clan and the other 3 divine clans had already reached the final stage. The tide has already passed. 3 clan leaders. Do you still want to continue fighting to the death? Shower's expression was ice-cold as she stood there arrogantly. Her clear and cold eyes swept over the 3 clan leaders in front of her. Beside Shower, the Sand Sea Devil Master stood there respectfully. He was clearly a supreme expert who had reached the peak of the 6th level, but beside Shower he was like a slave. And on the surrounding battlefield, the situation was completely one-sided. The 3 great divine clans' camp had already shown signs of being defeated. Even if they continued to fight, they would only be fighting like cornered beasts. They would still be unable to change the outcome. This scene made the 3 clan leaders' faces extremely ugly. 3 clan leaders, I'll give you a chance. Surrender or die. Shower shouted sternly. The 3 clan leaders looked at each other in dismay. Although they were unwilling to accept it, they had no choice in the face of the absolute difference in strength. Surrender. The current clan leader of the Blood Clan said first. The Blood Clan had suffered a great loss when Jian Wushuang led Demon Master Qinhua and eccentric Minghua to kill the clan leader of the Blood Clan. They had not fully recovered until now. The Blood Clan was the weakest among the 3 divine clans. Even the current clan leader was lucky enough to become the clan leader. Now, in the face of absolute strength, he did not have any room to struggle. He was willing to submit. As for the other 2 tribe leaders, they also secretly sighed and immediately chose to submit. From then on, the 9-tailed clan was the leader of the 4 great celestial races in the demon realm. The other 3 great celestial races completely submitted to the feet of the 9-tailed clan. A moment later, the curtain of this great battle had completely fallen. However, at this moment, Shower immediately ordered, everyone, recover your divine power as quickly as possible. In an hour, follow me. This order caused everyone to be extremely shocked. 9-tailed clan leader, in an hour, where do you want us to follow you? The Gu tribe leader asked. The 3 great divine territories. Shower's eyes flashed with a shocking cold light. Heaven-Cleaving Star, one of the 2 great headquarters of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. This Heaven-Cleaving Star was originally the location of the Heaven-Cleaving Palace, and the top geniuses of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance had all gathered here. However, at this moment, besides the many geniuses of the Heaven-Cleaving Palace, there were also countless top experts of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance gathered on this Heaven-Cleaving Star. Among them, the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving palace and the few commanders in charge of the battle were the leaders. There were more than 100 principals masters, and the lowest among them was an army of at least a rank 6 true saint. It could be said that the heaven-cleaving alliance had gathered all the high-level battle forces that they could mobilize. So many people, close to 100,000 rank 6 true saints and more than 100 principals masters. What are they doing? Among the densely packed crowd, many of the heaven-cleaving palace's genius disciples were also mixed in. At this moment, the hearts of these heaven-cleaving palace's genius disciples were extremely shocked. They were not the only ones. In fact, although many of the heaven-cleaving palace's experts had gathered here, they did not know what exactly they were trying to do. Therefore, when they saw the heaven-cleaving alliance's gathered power, a huge wave rose in their hearts. And at the front of the crowd, the 3 palace masters of the heaven-cleaving palace and the few commanders stood side by side. All of the highest combat power that the heaven-cleaving alliance can mobilize is gathered here. Only those who have ventured into the cosmic battlefield cannot return in a short period of time. Otherwise, a commander said, "It's fine." Palace Master Raincloud waved his hand. This time, it's not just the heaven-cleaving alliance. The Temporal Divine Hall and the Heavenly Ancestor Taoist sect will also take action. It's said that the 4 Great Celestials and the 8 Directions Celestial sect will also take part in the battle. They only have one target, and that is the 3 Great Saint Realms. The 3 Great Saint Realms will definitely be destroyed in this battle. The commanders were all excited. At this moment, one of the 3 palace masters, Ask Heaven Demonic God, suddenly opened his eyes. The Alliance Master's orders have arrived. The figures of the commanders and the other 2 palace masters trembled. In that case, let's set off. Instantly, the heaven-cleaving alliance's army of over 100 principals masters and nearly 100,000 true saints and above headed toward the 3rd heaven. At the same time, in the Temporal Divine Hall and the Heavenly Ancestor Taoist sect. The Temporal Divine Hall had gathered all the top-tier saints and principals masters together. This time, they did not leave any leeway. The Spacetime Divine Hall had gathered more than 80 principals masters and more than 100 top-tier saints. Apart from that, the 4 ancient immortals, who had never been involved in worldly affairs, personally rushed over. As for the Heavenly Ancestor Taoist sect, there were countless experts. At this moment, they had gathered an army of more than 100 lawmasters and nearly 100,000 saints. The moment the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance's army moved out, the experts from the Spacetime Divine Hall and the Heavenly Ancestor Taoist sect also moved out. Other than that, the 8 Directions Heavenly sect, which was made up of 6 great heavenly sects, also moved out. The Purple Blood sect, the Supreme Oblivion Valley, and more than 10 ancient sects of the Divine Beginning Realm had also moved out. At this moment, everyone pointed directly at the 3 great saint realms in the 3rd heaven. After the 4th heaven was completely desolate, the 3rd heaven had become the absolute holy land for cultivation in the Divine Beginning Realm. And the 3 great saint realms, which were high and mighty, occupied the territory with the best cultivation environment in the 3rd heaven. Normally, the 3rd heaven was extremely lively. This was especially so for the territories around the 3 great saint realms. As they were closer to the 3 great saint realms, these territories had also benefited greatly and were extremely prosperous. However, the territories around the 3 great saint realms appeared exceptionally quiet today. The reason for this was because there were countless numbers of experts from all directions sweeping over these territories. Powerful auras swept out wantonly, causing the cultivators in these territories to be like frightened birds. There are so many experts, there must be more than 100,000 of them, right? And there are even so many principals masters. From the looks of it, they are heading towards the 3 great saint realms. What's going on? What's going on? Why are there so many experts heading towards the 3 great saint realms? Could something have happened in the 3 great saint realms? Many thoughts appeared in the minds of the cultivators in the 3 great saint realms. Most of the cultivators in the 3 great saint realms did not know what had happened, but they could tell from the army of experts that something big must have happened in the 3 great saint realms. The 3 great saint realms had been the overlords of the Divine Beginning Realm for countless years. This place had once been the holy land of cultivation that countless cultivators dreamed of. This place had given birth to countless top experts. This place had once been looked up to by countless cultivators and countless factions. All this while, the three great saint realms had been lofty and unsurpassable existences. The three great saint realm masters represented the will of the heavenly Tao of the divine beginning realm. They had spoken and followed the principles in the divine beginning realm, attracting countless experts to worship them. Until now, the three great saint realms were still the heavens in the hearts of most cultivators in the divine beginning realm. But today, the three great saint realms were surrounded by countless experts. The east side was directly in front of the three saint realms and was guarded by the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance. As the number one alliance in the divine beginning realm, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was undoubtedly extremely powerful. The power that the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance possessed was even more powerful than a sacred land to a certain extent. And now, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance was personally led by the three palace masters and the few commanders. They gathered more than 100 principles masters and close to 100,000 true saints above rank 6. They only needed to wait for an order, and this army of close to 100,000 experts would directly attack the three saint realms from the front. To the south was the Temporal Divine Hall, one of the three Freedom Alliances. In addition, the Purple Blood Sect, Supreme Oblivion Valley, and the other 10 or so powerful forces of the Divine Beginning Realm were guarding it. Although the Temporal Divine Hall was relatively weak in the three Freedom Alliances, it did not have many cultivators. However, in terms of top-tier combat power, it was not much weaker than the other two Freedom Alliances. As for the Purple Blood Sect, Supreme Emotion Valley, and the other 10 or so great factions with deep foundations, they did not have many principles masters. However, they had countless cultivators at the level of saints, therefore the two sides just so happened to combine together. They also had over 100 principles masters and an army of over 100,000 immortal saints. In the north, the top experts of the Divine Ancestor Taoist sect, who were called Ancestors, led the way. Ghost Ancestor, Spirit Ancestor, and even the Blood Ancestor had rushed back from the universe battlefield. These top experts, who were called Ancestors, led countless experts under their command. In addition, there were the coalition forces of 2 of the 6 celestial sects. In total, there were more than 100 principles masters gathered in the north, and there were more than 150,000 troops of rank 6 true saints and above. In the west, behind the three saint realms. According to Jian Wushuang's guess, once the three saint realms were defeated, countless cultivators would probably choose to flee to the rear. Therefore, the combat strength guarding the rear was definitely the strongest. With Shower as the commander, the combat strength of the 4 divine races was gathered under her command. Each of the 4 divine races was extremely powerful. At their peak, there were more than 10 to 20 principles masters in any divine race, and the Nine-Tailed clan was even more powerful because of Shower's relationship. The number of principles masters gathered had reached as many as 60 to 70. Even though they had just experienced a great battle and the 4 great celestial races had lost a lot of their combat power, after the 4 great celestial races were united, there were still more than 120 principles masters. There were also other top races like the Blood Marten clan, Devil Ape race, and other races from the demon realm who were all present. Could be said that in this battle, Shower commanded nearly 90% of the demon realm's highest combat strength. Other than that, there was also the remaining 4-sided Sky Sect Alliance army from the 6-sided Sky Sect Alliance army. With all of these added up, the combat strength here was shockingly strong. There were nearly 200 principles masters alone, and there were more than 300,000 experts above the 6th level true saint realm. This strongest combat power would completely block the path of retreat for the cultivators of the 3 great saint realms, not giving them any chance to escape. Of course, even though the 3 great saint realms were now completely surrounded, to truly destroy the 3 great saint realms and uproot them, there was still the most important link. If this link was not done, then this allied army operation was nothing but a joke. This link was the 3 great saint realm masters. The 3 saint realm masters were supported by the will of the heavenly Tao. They represented the will of the heavenly Tao of the divine beginning realm. With these 3 saint realm masters around, the 3 great saint realms would have nothing to worry about. Therefore, if they wanted to destroy the 3 great saint realms, they first had to kill the 3 Saint Realm Masters. However, the strength of the 3 Masters of the Saint Realm was obvious. In the Divine Beginning Realm, even an expert at the Ruler Realm could not do anything to the 3 Masters of the Saint Realm. Buzz! The space shook slightly. 3 figures appeared one after another in the empty void around the nest of the 3 Saint Realms. These 3 figures were Jian Wushuang, Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, and Temporal Temple Master. As soon as they arrived in the void, they sensed the countless experts gathered around the 3 Saint Realms. They are all here. It seems that we are only waiting for our attack, Temporal Temple Master said with a smile. This time, we have gathered 80 to 90% of the top forces of the Divine Beginning Realm to attack the 3 Saint Realms together. In terms of overall strength, the Coalition Army is much stronger than the 3 Saint Realms. They definitely have the ability to completely destroy the 3 Saint Realms. As the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master spoke, he suddenly changed the topic. However, if we want to completely uproot the 3 Saint Realms, we must first kill the 3 Saint Realm Masters. Even if I, Space-Time, and the Heaven Ancestor join hands, we can't do that. Only you, Heavenly Sword Marquis, can do that. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. In addition, Xian God has also sent word that Star Palace is fully prepared. As long as we attack the 3 Saint Realms, he and the Heaven Ancestor will lead the experts of Star Palace to immediately destroy the 3 Saint Realms base in the universe battlefield, which is the Holy Island, Temporal Temple Master said. Destroy the Holy Island? Jian Wushuang frowned slightly. Aren't the rulers from the Devil Cloud Star in the Holy Island? With them, Xian God and the others won't be able to do it easily, right? No, Temporal Temple Master shook his head. Xian God has already placed people in the Holy Pill, but according to the news from the Holy Island, the 3 rulers from Mo Yunxing have already left the Holy Island. I don't know where they are. Xian God guessed that the 3 rulers are most likely in the Divine Beginning Realm. They are most likely in the nest of the 3 Saint Realms. Are the 3 rulers here too? Jian Wushuang looked into the void ahead. His soul power had already spread out, but the 3 Saint Realms were too vast and were blocked by many magic arrays. Even he could not sense the auras of the 3 rulers. 3 Masters of the Saint Realm and 3 rulers. Although the 3 rulers are restricted by the heavenly Tao and cannot display their peak strength, their combined strength should not be weaker than that of a real ruler. Moreover, the 3 rulers may have special treasures in their hands. Heavenly Sword Marquis, are you confident? Asked the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded calmly. Let the people from the eternal chaotic world come out first. Jian Wushuang waved his hand lightly, and the void in front of him instantly shattered. A complete space passage had taken shape. At the same time, in the Wushuang Saint Realm of the eternal chaotic world, the cultivators who were waiting carefully all heard Jian Wushuang's voice at this moment. Everyone, get ready to move. As soon as Jian Wushuang's voice fell, a huge space passage appeared in the void above the Saint City. Seeing the space passage take shape, the cultivators below all looked excited and rushed toward the space passage one after another. Through the space passage, they soon appeared in the void in front of Jian Wushuang. There were numerous figures, including experts from the 7-star Mysterious Sect, the 4 Divine Clans, and the 8 Directions Celestial Sect, as well as native cultivators from the eternal chaotic world. It was their first time in the Divine Beginning Realm. Therefore, when they appeared in the void of the Divine Beginning Realm, the first thing they did was to look around and feel the surrounding void. This is the Divine Beginning Realm? What abundant spiritual energy! It's indeed much more abundant than our eternal chaotic world. The space here is also very stable. Exclamations sounded one after another. The native cultivators of the eternal chaotic world were all in a state of excitement and shock. However, the experts of the 7-star Mysterious Sect, the 4 Great Divine Clans, and the 8 Directions Celestial Sect all frowned at this moment. Is this the 3rd heaven, the location of the 3 Saint Realms? Xian Yan's face darkened. It's in front of the nest of the 3 Saint Realms, Temporal Temple Master said. You are Temporal Temple Master? And the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master beside you. Xian Yan narrowed his eyes. Xian Yan, Palace Master of Heaven Punishment Palace. one of the 3 masters of the 7-star mysterious sect. I've heard a lot about you. Temporal Temple Master smiled. Everyone. Jian Wushuang looked over. This is the lair of the 3 Saint Realms. However, the 3 Saint Realms have been surrounded by the 3 Freedom Alliance, the 4 Divine Clans, the 8 Directions Celestial Sect, and many ancient sects in the Divine Beginning Realm. The 3 Saint Realms will be completely destroyed. What you need to do is to stay here and watch quietly. After the 3 Saint Realms are destroyed, the 7-star mysterious sect will take over the territory again. The 7-star mysterious sect members looked at each other in dismay and then nodded secretly. Although they had returned to the Divine Beginning Realm, they were still in their weakest state and had not reached the peak of their combat strength. Even if they helped Jian Wushuang now, they would not be able to help him much. It would be better to just wait and see. As for the people of the eternal chaotic world, you should stay in this void and not run around. When the battle starts, the situation will be quite chaotic. If you stay here, the people of the 7-star mysterious sect will protect you. However, if you run around and accidentally get involved in this battle, you will become cannon fodder at any time, Jian Wushuang warned. The native cultivators from the eternal chaotic world nodded in agreement. Although they were emperor-level experts in the eternal chaotic world, they were nothing but ants in the Divine Beginning Realm. Jian Wushuang had called them cannon fodder. In fact, he had thought highly of them. After giving some instructions to his parents, Wang Yuan and Su Rou, Jian Wushuang waved his hand and said, "It's time to attack." Heaven-cleaving, temporal. The Heaven-cleaving Alliance Master and Temporal Temple Master nodded in unison. In the next moment, the 3 figures disappeared into the void. At the front, above the vast territory of the 3 Saint Realms, boom, 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 3 terrifying auras suddenly descended. Each of these 3 auras was ridiculously powerful. In the Divine Beginning Realm, they were absolutely terrifying existences. 3 figures also appeared in the void above the 3 Saint Realms. Space-time. Jian Wushuang glanced at Temporal Temple Master. Temporal Temple Master smiled faintly and waved his hand. In an instant, vast space-time power swept out crazily like a tide. In the blink of an eye, the entire 3 Saint Realms was covered. The space-time in the territory where the 3 Saint Realms were located had been completely imprisoned and sealed. Space-time, I haven't seen you attack for many years. Your use of the space-time laws is becoming more and more brilliant. In the Divine Beginning Realm, your strength is restricted, but you can still easily seal the space-time of the 3 Great Saint Realms. What a good method. The Heaven-cleaving Alliance Master laughed. Don't praise me. I also have the assistance of the space-time treasure. If it was just me, I wouldn't be able to do this. The Temporal Temple Master said. The territory of the 3 Saint Realms was extremely vast. It was indeed difficult to cover the entire 3 Saint Realms in one go. Jian Wushuang was also good at space-time principles. However, even if he used the heaven-painting golden flag to use space-time imprisonment, he could only cover half of the Saint Realms at most. However, Temporal Temple Master covered the 3 Saint Realms in one go. Even if he really used a time-space treasure, it was still very impressive. The space-time of the 3 Saint Realms had been completely sealed, which meant that the earth-shaking battle had begun. As the 3 of them descended above the 3 Saint Realms, a huge mirror image appeared in the void in 4 directions around the 3 Saint Realms. In the mirror image, it was the scene of Jian Wushuang, the Heaven-cleaving Alliance Master, and Temporal Temple Master descending above the 3 Saint Realms. It's the Heaven-cleaving Alliance Master and the Temporal Temple Master. When the 3 people appeared in the picture, the army of experts of the Heaven-cleaving Alliance and the experts of the Temporal Temple immediately burst into a commotion. But soon, the commotion calmed down and was replaced by a wave of confusion. Apart from the Heaven-cleaving Alliance Master and the Temporal Temple Master, the one standing in the middle seems to be Heavenly Sword Marquis. It is indeed the Heavenly Sword Marquis. He has disappeared for nearly 100,000 years. It is said that he went to the universe battlefield to explore. Now, it seems that he has come back from the universe battlefield. Why is this Heavenly Sword Marquis standing together with the leader of the Heaven-cleaving Alliance and the Temporal Temple Master? And why is he standing in the middle of them? It seems that the leader of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance and the Temporal Temple Master seem to be the Heavenly Sword Marquis? What's going on? In front of the mirror image, countless experts from the 3 Freedom Alliances, the 4 Divine Clans, the 8 Directions Celestial Sect, the Purple Blood Sect, the Supreme Emotion Forgetting Valley, and more than a dozen ancient sects were all astonished and puzzled. In the image, Jian Wushuang was indeed standing in the center, while the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and the Temporal Temple Master stood on both sides. Judging from their appearances and behaviors, Jian Wushuang was indeed the leader of the 3. However, in the impression of these experts, although Jian Wushuang was a top genius, when he became famous, his battle strength was only at the level of a Principles Master. There was a big gap between him and a top Principles Master. Since when could he be on the same level as a ruler expert, and even let the 2 masters take charge of him? What they did not know was that Jian Wushuang was the absolute number 1 battle force in today's battle. As for the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and Temporal Temple Master, although they were both ruler-level experts, their strength was limited by the Heavenly Tao in the Divine Beginning Realm. At best, they were only slightly stronger than Saint Realm Masters. The 2 of them had come together with Jian Wushuang to assist him. They wanted to defeat and even kill the 3 Saint Realm Masters and the 3 rulers hidden in the 3 Saint Realms. They could only rely on Jian Wushuang. That was why Jian Wushuang was qualified to stand in the center. That was why they chose Jian Wushuang as their leader. In the 3 Saint Realms, as the Temporal Temple Master completely sealed the time and space of the 3 Saint Realms, countless cultivators in the 3 Saint Realms were naturally alarmed. In fact, they had long been alarmed. The 3 Freedom Alliance, the 4 Divine Clans, the allied army of the 8 Directions Celestial Sect, and the army formed by more than a dozen ancient forces had rushed over from all directions. This news had been known to almost all of the 3rd heaven. Of course, the 3 Great Saint Realms knew. They also knew that they were now in the center of a storm. But even so, there was not the slightest trace of fear in the 3 Great Saint Realms. This was because the 3 strongest pillars of the 3 Great Saint Realms, the 3 Saint Realm Masters, were still there. In the eyes of the cultivators of the 3 Great Saint Realms, their Saint Master was absolutely invincible in the Divine Beginning Realm. As long as their Saint Master was still around, no one could do anything to the 3 Great Sacred Zones. Even if all the forces of the Divine Beginning Realm joined hands, they would not be afraid at all. Whoosh! 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 Under the expectant gazes of countless cultivators of the 3 Great Saint Realms, the 3 Saint Masters finally appeared. The bald man, Life and Death Saint Master, who was wearing a white robe and bathing in the sunlight. Flame Saint Master, clad in purple armor and with his arms crossed, was exuding endless demonic chi. Destruction Saint Master, who was clad in blood-red clothes, was exuding a lofty aura. 3 masters of the Saint Realm appeared in this world at the same time. The aura they emitted was still as aloof and lofty as before. The power they displayed with their every move could still make countless cultivators bow down to them. However, if one looked carefully, they would find that the 3 masters of the Saint Realm had a gloomy and solemn look on their faces when they faced Jian Wushuang and the other 2. The 3 of them had already guessed that Jian Wushuang would not let the 3 Saint Realms go, so they were ready to fight him. However, they did not expect that Jian Wushuang would be so generous. He had gathered so many forces and experts at once. It was clear that he wanted to uproot the 3 Saint Realms and not give them any chance. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you're finally here. Holy Master Yen stared at Jian Wushuang with a gloomy look. He had personally dealt with Jian Wushuang on the Saha Island. Unfortunately, he had not been able to kill Jian Wushuang in that battle. At the thought of Jian Wushuang's current strength, the Saint Master often secretly regretted that he had not spared no effort to kill Jian Wushuang. That was why he had given Jian Wushuang a chance to continue to grow up until now. You 3 Saint Realms have stood in the Divine Beginning Realm for so many years. It's enough. It's time to disappear, Jian Wushuang said calmly. Humph, if you want to destroy the 3 Saint Realms in one breath, you have to see if you have the ability. Destruction Saint Master snorted. Ability? Jian Wushuang smiled disdainfully. You don't even have the right to be looked at. You'd better ask your backers to come out. The 3 people who came from the Magic Cloud planet, Show yourselves." As soon as Jian Wushuang finished his words, 3 figures soared into the sky from the 3 saint realms. "Haha, Heavenly Sword Marquis, when we met last time in the universe battlefield, you were just an ant in front of me. If it weren't for Temporal Temple Master's help, you would have died long ago. But now, you dare to take the initiative to kill us even though you know we are here. How dare you?" The tall man among the 3 rulers let out a hearty laugh that reverberated in the surrounding area. His laughter revealed a lot of information, which shocked the 3 great saint realms and countless cultivators watching the battle in the surrounding area. "These 3 are rulers?" "Yes, they are rulers. There are actually 3 rulers hiding in the 3 great saint realms." "How is that possible? Aren't there only these few rulers in the divine beginning realm? When did 3 more appear?" "It seems that these 3 people are not rulers of the divine beginning realm, but are from the vast universe. It's just that I don't know why they came here." From what he said, the Heavenly Sword Marquis, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, and the Temporal Temple Master all knew that these 3 people existed. Moreover, they had met each other in the cosmic battlefield. They know they have 3 rulers as their helpers, but they still dare to attack us. It seems that they have a way to deal with us. The cultivators from the various forces had begun to discuss among themselves. They were shocked by the appearance of the 3 rulers, but they were not afraid. After all, they could see that Jian Wushuang and the others had known about their existence and dared to attack them. They must have a way to deal with them. The 3 Saint Realm camps were overjoyed when they found out that the 3 rulers and their helpers had suddenly appeared. They were already filled with blind trust and admiration for their 3 Saint Masters. Now that they had 3 rulers as their helpers, they were even more confident. They did not even think that Jian Wushuang, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, and the Temporal Temple Master could pose a threat to them. Enough nonsense. Today, the 3 Saint Realms will be destroyed. As for the 3 of you, since you are all from the Devil Cloud Star, you should die together with the dog of the Devil Cloud Star Master." Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. He had already sentenced the 3 Masters and the 3 Saint Realm Masters to death. Clang! Jian Wushuang moved his body, and the sound of metal clashing rang out of nowhere. As if the heaven and earth had just opened and was being torn apart, the sword essence that Jian Wushuang burst out instantly swept across the 9 heavens. The terrifying aura and the shocking sword essence swept in all directions, causing the expressions of the 3 masters of the Saint Realm to change. Even the 3 masters of the Devil Cloud Star were stunned. "Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are too arrogant," the white-haired elder said with a hint of anger. "Die!" The tall man took a step forward and directly rushed toward Jian Wushuang. Whoosh! A dazzling silver light suddenly flashed. The silver claw formed by the tall man's right hand easily tore the space apart like a blade. As the air trembled, the silver claw rushed toward Jian Wushuang's chest at lightning speed. Seeing the silver claw coming, Jian Wushuang did not dodge and let the claw tear at his body. The silver claw left a clear claw mark on Jian Wushuang's body, but Jian Wushuang did not move at all. "What?" The tall man raised his head in shock. Not long ago, in the Magic Smoke Valley, one of the 3 cosmic battlefields, he and the evil young man worked together to kill Jian Wushuang. At that time, Jian Wushuang was still very weak in front of him, and his casual attack could cause great damage to Jian Wushuang. If Temporal Temple Master had not arrived in time that battle, he could easily kill Jian Wushuang. However, it had only been 3,000 years since the battle, yet Jian Wushuang did not dodge his attacks. He allowed all of his power to affect his divine body, but he did not move or suffer any damage. How did this jump get to be so big? Even if Jian Wushuang had broken through to become a principal's master and possessed the battle strength of a ruler, it was impossible for him to completely ignore his attacks. "Your attacks are just scratching my itch." Jian Wushuang looked at the tall man in front of him with a mocking expression. "Bastard, if it weren't for the fact that I was too restricted in this world and was unable to unleash my full strength, do you think you would be able to withstand my attack head-on?" The tall man was still unwilling to admit Jian Wushuang's current strength. What he did not know was that since Jian Wushuang had cultivated the first level of the Supreme Eternal Celestial Body, An attack at the level of an elementary ruler like him was indeed unable to shake him. Even if the tall man's strength was at its peak, Jian Wushuang could still easily withstand that claw attack without dodging. I've already asked you to attack first. Now you should also take my attack. Jian Wushuang did not use his supreme treasure magic weapon. Instead, he used his finger as a sword and slashed with one hand. It was a casual strike, but it had activated the origin of the sword principle universe. At the same time, it carried the power of Jian Wushuang's divine power, which was comparable to that of an elementary ruler. Crash! As his finger fell, a towering sword shadow instantly slashed out. The tall man's face changed drastically. Behind him, the evil-looking young man's face suddenly sank. Buzz! The space-time trembled, and endless power of space-time principles pressed toward Jian Wushuang. Even the sword shadow he used was weakened by the power of space-time. However, it was only weakened. The sword shadow did not completely disappear, but continued to slash at the tall man. Get lost! The tall man waved his sharp claws and forcefully collided with the sword shadow. As a result, the towering sword shadow seemed to look at each other as if they were facing a huge sea wave. In an instant, it defeated his attack. Then, the mighty sword shadow covered his body. Hum! With a muffled groan, the tall man suddenly retreated. His face was a little paler than before. It was slow to say, but in fact, from the moment the tall man fought with Jian Wushuang to the moment when the tall man was defeated by Jian Wushuang's sword shadow annihilation, it was all done in a flash. In this flash, the battle between Jian Wushuang and the tall man had already been decided, and the outcome was very clear. It seems that the ruler of the three Saint Realms has been pushed back? Not just pushed back, but completely crushed by the Heavenly Sword Marquis. Yes, crushed. I saw it clearly. The Heavenly Sword Marquis didn't dodge the ruler's attack, but his body wasn't moved at all. On the contrary, the ruler simply used his finger as a sword and casually used his sword techniques to crush him. How can this be? Isn't that an expert at the ruler realm? It feels like their identities have been switched. Heavenly Sword Marquis is the real ruler, while the ruler is just an immortal saint. The gap between the two is too big. The countless experts from various forces who watched the battle through the mirror images were shocked. They had doubted Jian Wushuang's strength before, and did not understand why he was qualified to stand between the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and Temporal Temple Master. But now they vaguely understood. The tall man's face was extremely ugly when he was easily crushed by Jian Wushuang in front of so many people in the three Saint Realms. But no matter how ugly it was, he had to admit that the gap between his strength and Jian Wushuang's was indeed a little big. It seems that this kid's strength is not affected at all in this world. He can completely unleash the power of a ruler, but the three of us are too restricted. We can only use 1/10 of our strength at our peak. We are absolutely no match for him in a one-on-one fight, the tall man said in a low voice. If that's the case, then the three of us will attack together, the devilish youth said. The white-haired elder nodded slightly and said, let's use the plan that the three of us have been using to attack the enemy together. All right. The tall man and the devilish youth nodded in unison. The three of them had been sent here by the Devil Cloud Star Master not only because they were experts at the ruler level, but more importantly, the three of them often went on adventures together. The three of them had a very good understanding of each other, and he's very good at killing people. The three of them have even ganged up to kill a High Master, although the High Master escaped, but the High Master almost died in the hands of the three of them. This is an indisputable fact. Now, even though the strength of the three of them was greatly restricted and they could only display 1/10 of their peak strength, if the three of them worked together, they still had the confidence to rely on 1/10 of their combat strength. If the three of them worked together, they would be able to defeat a new ruler. Jian Wushuang, on the other hand, had just made a breakthrough and he was not a ruler yet. Attack! The three rulers from Devil Cloud Star Master moved at the same time. The tall man who had just collided with Jian Wushuang suddenly swayed, and a burst of dazzling silver light flashed. His body directly turned into a 30-meter-tall silver Sirius, whose entire body was silvery white. It was filled with a shocking, murderous aura. With a swoosh, the silver skywolf directly disappeared in the void. When it reappeared, it was directly in front of Jian Wushuang. The moment the silver skywolf moved, the surrounding space completely froze. In this frozen space, there were transparent space-time spears, which were dozens of feet long. With terrifying piercing power, they shot toward Jian Wushuang from all directions. As for the child-faced, white-haired elder, he narrowed his eyes and suddenly turned into a dark fog, like a large dark cloud that filled the heaven and earth. With the help of the dark cloud, he completely disappeared from Jian Wushuang's sight and even soul perception. As long as there was a chance, the white-haired elder, who was covered by the dark clouds, would certainly attack Jian Wushuang with lightning speed and give him a fatal blow. It had to be said that the three of them worked together perfectly. However, no matter how well they worked together, in the face of absolute strength, everything was just empty talk. Ridiculous! Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. With a flip of his hand, a black magic sword emitting a cold and heart-palpitating aura appeared in his hand. This black magic sword was the Yellow Spring. As soon as the Yellow Spring appeared, the three rulers' expressions changed. They could immediately sense the terrifying power contained in this black magic sword. Supreme Treasure Magic Weapon. The three of them were surprised. Although they were also rulers and had some background from the Devil Cloud Star, they all had a Supreme Treasure Magic Weapon. However, Jian Wushuang was only a Principal's Master. It was obvious that he had just made a breakthrough, but he had a suitable Supreme Treasure Magic Weapon. Of course, they were surprised. With the Netherworld Sword in hand, Jian Wushuang waved his sword. Disperse! Jian Wushuang said softly. The Netherworld Sword in his hand immediately streaked across the surrounding void with endless cold light. The void around him was completely cut open like a piece of paper, and it spread out with a ruthless black sword shadow. The space was still shattering crazily. The ruthless black sword shadow destroyed everything around it. It was the Wushuang Sword Manual Star Dream. The first move of Star Dream was originally used at close range to tear apart the opponent's defense and cut through the opponent's divine body. But now, with absolute strength suppression, Jian Wushuang directly used it across the void while attacking the surrounding void. For a moment, Chi, the space-time spear that shot out from all directions was directly destroyed by the black sword shadow. The dark clouds that filled the surrounding void were also completely swept away by the shocking sword essence of the black sword shadow. The figure of the elder with a childlike face and white hair was completely revealed and even completely locked by the sword essence. However, whether it was the evil-looking young man who used the space-time spear or the white-haired elder, they were still some distance away from Jian Wushuang. The Star Dream first move of Jian Wushuang was not aimed at them, but the tall man who transformed into the silver skywolf. He was immediately baptized by the terrifying black sword light. When the sword light attacked, the silver skywolf immediately raised its two sharp claws and mercilessly slashed out like two silver lightning bolts. But in the end, the cold black sword light seemed to be unimpeded as it passed through Silver Skywolf's body. Silver Skywolf immediately dissipated, and the silver light that filled the sky was completely extinguished. The tall man's figure was revealed, but at that moment, his eyes were wide open, and he looked at his chest in disbelief. A silver true treasure armor appeared there. This silver true treasure armor was at the pinnacle universe true treasure level, and its protective abilities were extremely powerful. However, at that moment, there was a deep white mark on this silver true treasure armor. In the deepest part of the white mark, there was a faint trace of blood. This blood color indicated that his pinnacle true treasure armor had already been cut open by a crack. It was this crack that had pierced through his godly body, and it had already split his godly body in half. With just one sword strike, he tore open a crack in my pinnacle true treasure armor and pierced through my godly body. How is this possible? The tall man's face was filled with disbelief. His godly body had been pierced through, and the godly power in his body had been annihilated crazily. At the first moment, nearly 30% of his godly power had been consumed. This undoubtedly made him even more terrified. The evil-looking youth and the white-haired elder beside him also noticed the tall man's condition, and their expressions changed drastically. Indeed, if they were at their peak, the three of them could fight against an advanced ruler. Even though they were suppressed by the heavenly Tao and could only use 10% of their strength, the three of them could still fight against an ordinary primary ruler. However, the strength that Jian Wushuang displayed at this moment was clearly not only at the level of a primary ruler. He tore apart the tall man's supreme treasure armor with one strike. Although Jian Wushuang was using the most powerful supreme treasure, he needed to be strong enough to tear apart the supreme treasure armor with a good weapon. The fact that Jian Wushuang could do this meant that his current strength was no weaker than that of an advanced ruler. An advanced ruler with the most powerful supreme treasure divine sword could not be defeated by the three of them in their current state. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang moved like a ghost and attacked again. This time, he appeared directly in front of the tall man. The black divine sword in his hand stabbed at the tall man's chest like a meteor phantom. A terrifying strangling power suddenly erupted. It was a 7th-level absolute art sword rainbow. The tall man could not resist the terrifying speed and penetrating power. Chi! The cold blade almost instantly entered the tall man's divine body through the cracks on his supreme treasure armor. A terrifying strangling power suddenly burst out. The tall man's entire divine body was twisted. His divine power was completely strangled by the sword, and his voice began to fade. I didn't expect that I would die here. The tall man's face was still full of disbelief. He stared at Jian Wushuang with unprecedented fear in the depths of his eyes. Buzz! The tall man's divine body collapsed and his consciousness was completely cut off. All that was left was his interspatial ring and the supreme treasure armor on the surface of his body. The three rulers of the Devil Cloud Star, the first ruler, had been killed by Jian Wushuang's thunderbolt. Too fast. Before the tall man could react, he was killed by Jian Wushuang's sword. This scene made the evil-looking young man and the white-haired elder change their expressions. The tall man was the strongest among the three of them in terms of direct combat ability. However, he did not even have the chance to struggle in front of Jian Wushuang. At this moment, an unprecedented fear emerged in the hearts of the two rulers. Run! The white-haired elder roared and immediately turned around to flee. The death of the tall man was too much of a shock to him. Although he had come to this territory under the orders of the Devil Cloud Star Master, who wanted to protect the three Saint Realms, it did not mean that he would risk his life for the three Saint Realms. He was a ruler, he valued his life very much. Moreover, the strength displayed by the other party in this battle was not something he could fight against. As soon as the white-haired elder fled, the evil-looking young man immediately fled as well. Can you escape? Jian Wushuang's eyes turned cold. Temporal. Leave it to me, the Temporal Temple Master said loudly. Then, he saw the vast power of the rule covering the white-haired elder and the evil-looking young man. This power of principles was vast and majestic, and it had a huge restriction on the white-haired old man and the young man. Even though the young man had activated the power of principles to resist it, it was clear that the Temporal Temple Master had the absolute advantage in the battle against the Temporal Temple Master. How is this possible? How can the Temporal Temple Master's control of the laws of space and time be so amazing? The young man was shocked. Temporal Temple Master burst into laughter. Haha! Your use of the power of space-time principles is slightly inferior to mine. Now that I'm in the divine beginning realm, my understanding of the use of space-time in this world and my ability to use the strongest power of principles under the suppression of the heavenly Tao is as clear as the palm of my hand. How can you fight me in this situation? Temporal Temple Master's laughter echoed throughout the void. His laughter made the evil-looking young man pale, because he had noticed that Jian Wushuang was chasing after him. If he was at his peak and did not have Temporal Temple Master's suppression, he would have been able to escape from Jian Wushuang. But now, his strength was completely underestimated, and his speed was greatly reduced by the suppression of spacetime. He could only watch as Jian Wushuang caught up with him. Then Jian Wushuang attacked with lightning speed. With just a few strikes, the evil-looking young man was killed by Jian Wushuang in a head-on fight. There's only one left. Jian Wushuang's eyes were filled with a shocking killing intent. His eyes had already locked onto the white-haired elder in the void not far away. Because he was chasing after the evil-looking young man, The white-haired elder had already fled a certain distance, but this distance was still under the temporal temple master's time and space suppression. Whoosh! Jian Wushuang used his fastest speed and caught up with the elder in just a moment. Heavenly Sword Marquis. Don't go too far. The elder's face was cold and his eyes were extremely cold as he stared at Jian Wushuang. Go too far. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He had killed the tall man and the evil-looking young man, so he should have been able to kill the white-haired elder easily. However, the latter dared to say such threatening words to him. This made Jian Wushuang feel that something was wrong. Could it be? Jian Wushuang's expression changed, but a cold smile appeared on his face. It seems that Devil Cloud Star Master not only sent you 3 rulers to this territory, but also gave you the special treasure, right? Is it in your hands now? The white-haired elder looked gloomy and did not speak. Jian Wushuang was right. He did have a trump card, which was the special treasure that Devil Cloud Star Master gave him. The special treasure was extremely effective against special life forms and possessed extraordinary power. The special treasure had played a great role in Xianxia's death during the world-ending battle. However, Devil Cloud Star Master was the one who had killed Xianxia. He was the one who had personally controlled the treasure. However, the treasure in his hands could not exert its strongest power. If he were in the universe void, his strength would not be restricted. He could barely exert a certain amount of the treasure's power. But now, in the divine beginning realm, his strength was limited to only 1/10. Under such circumstances, although he could use the treasure, the price was too high, so high that it was difficult for him to bear. Therefore, in the divine beginning realm, he did not want to use the strongest treasure unless it was absolutely necessary. But now, if Jian Wushuang continued to be aggressive, he had no other choice. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you just want to kill the 3 Saint Realm Masters. There's no need to kill me. Otherwise, if you really force me, you won't have a good life. The elder with white hair shouted in a deep voice. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and sneered. You're too conceited. If you don't have the treasure, I can spare your life as long as you kowtow and beg for mercy. But since you have the treasure, you deserve to die. Jian Wushuang did not hesitate at all. He did not have much killing intent toward the white-haired elder. Previously, he only wanted to kill him because he came from the Devil Cloud Star. But now, since he mentioned the special treasure, Jian Wushuang had to kill him. He was very interested in the special treasure in the white-haired elder's hand. That treasure had a great restraining effect on special life forms. It was a nemesis to special life forms. Therefore, he had to destroy it. Even if he could not destroy it, he could not let the white-haired elder take it back to the magic cloud planet. Die! Jian Wushuang did not want to waste any more time with the white-haired elder. With a flash of his body, he charged forward, and a shocking sword essence instantly swept out. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you're courting death. The white-haired elder looked like he was going crazy. When he saw Jian Wushuang charging toward him, his eyes turned scarlet. Buzz! A special wave suddenly spread out. A black spear with a special aura appeared in the hand of the white-haired elder. It was the spear that had killed Xianxia. Buzz! Layers of strange black divine power spread out from the black spear. This black divine power was full of destruction and tyranny. As the white-haired elder poured all his divine power into it, the black divine power suddenly soared, and in the blink of an eye, it blotted out the sky. As for the black spear, directly turned into a destructive black light beam and shot toward Jian Wushuang. At the moment it shot toward him, the endless black divine power crazily condensed into a demonic human face. This human face only had a rough outline, but it was still filled with absolute majesty. Especially the pair of deep and strange eyes, there was a kind of disdain that looked down on the universe and above everyone else. The eyes that looked down on the common people were already staring at Jian Wushuang. The condensation of the face made Jian Wushuang's face change. Especially being stared at by the face, Jian Wushuang felt his body tremble, and an unprecedented sense of fear rose from the bottom of his heart. This sense of fear came from his life level. This sense of fear was as if he had met his nemesis. This feeling, Jian Wushuang's face was gloomy. Whose face is this? Is it the face of the Devil Cloud Star Master or someone else? Jian Wushuang did not know the origin of this human face, but he knew that it was formed by the power from the spear. Without a doubt, the spear did have a great restraint on his life level. Jian Wushuang did not have time to think, because the dark light beam formed by the black spear had already appeared in front of him. Jian Wushuang did not care about the white-haired elder, but he did not dare to underestimate the black spear that had once killed his master. In an instant, he used his life divine power and heaven-cleaving skill. His divine power immediately rose to a level that was barely comparable to an advanced ruler. Starfire burning the sun, Jian Wushuang shouted, and a demonic sword light flashed across the netherworld, divine sword in his hand. Crack, crack. The sound of the void cracking suddenly rang out. A terrifying sword light that seemed to be able to burn everything in the world, with a shocking power, rushed toward the black light beam formed by the spear. In the blink of an eye, the two collided head-on. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The collision of the two terrifying attacks did not produce a terrifying explosion. Instead, there was only the sound of divine power being pressed against each other. The fear in Jian Wushuang's heart grew stronger and stronger. At the same time, there was a special power slowly eroding toward him from the black light beam. Jian Wushuang's face was solemn, and the power in his hands increased a little. The two terrifying powers attacked crazily, but suddenly, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. The power contained in the spear has been weakened by about 70% by my swordsmanship. The remaining power should be about 30%, Jian Wushuang muttered, but he had already made a bold decision. It was an extremely crazy decision. Jian Wushuang focused his eyes. The sword light, which was able to fight against the dark light beam, collapsed without any warning. The reason why it collapsed was not because the power of the sword light had been completely exhausted. It was because Jian Wushuang deliberately controlled it and withdrew its power. Without the obstruction of the sword light, the dark light beam naturally charged toward Jian Wushuang. In the blink of an eye, it had already arrived in front of Jian Wushuang. At this moment, Jian Wushuang had no intention of dodging at all. He only exerted the power of the Blood Demon Cave armor with all his strength. It was obvious that he wanted to forcibly resist the impact of the long spear. I want to see for myself how special this long spear is, and how much it can restrain special life forms like me. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a trace of madness. He knew very well that this spear was very important to both him and the Devil Cloud Star Master. Even the Devil Cloud Star Master would only be able to kill him with this spear. Because of this, he wanted to truly experience the power of this spear. Therefore, he deliberately dissipated his sword light and allowed the remaining 30% of its power to stab toward his divine body. Qi! The dark spear, which was emitting a strange aura, hit Jian Wushuang's chest and was immediately blocked by the Blood Demon Cave armor. After all, it was a supreme treasure armor. The remaining 30% power of the dark spear could not penetrate the Blood Demon Cave armor directly, but there was a special power in the dark spear. It completely ignored the Blood Demon Cave armor and entered Jian Wushuang's body at once. Rumble! Jian Wushuang felt his body roaring crazily. A large amount of his divine power began to be destroyed under the impact of the special power. In the blink of an eye, more than 10% of his divine power had been destroyed, and the special power continued to attack. What a terrifying, special power! Jian Wushuang was shocked. He immediately mobilized all his divine power to counter the special power. After 3 breaths, Jian Wushuang's body calmed down again. However, at this moment, he had less than 80% of his divine power. In other words, the special power that had just poured into his body from the black spear had destroyed more than 20% of his divine power in just a few breaths. After all, as a special life form, his divine power was as vast as the sea after he became the Principal's Masters. Now, even if he had received a full power blow from the Sky Rock ruler who had reached the level of a top ruler, he had only lost less than 1% of his divine power. But now, the black spear into the special force directly annihilated more than 20% of his power. What did this mean? This is the ruler of the Devil Cloud Star Master. He can't use his peak strength in the divine beginning realm. If he could use his peak strength, this attack would definitely hurt me more. But if the stronger and more terrifying Devil Cloud Star Master were to control the spear personally, the result would be, Jian Wushuang thought. He could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. He finally understood why his master had died at the hands of the Devil Cloud Star Master, even though he was so powerful and his methods were so brilliant. This was not only because the Devil Cloud Star Master was stronger, but most importantly, it was because of this special long spear. The special power contained within this long spear was too terrifying. The threat it posed to the special life forms was too great. And he definitely could not let such a spear fall into the hands of the Devil Cloud Star Master. The situation on the battlefield suddenly changed. After Jian Wushuang killed the tall man and the evil-looking young man, the two masters, almost everyone thought that Jian Wushuang should be able to kill the white-haired elder easily. However, they did not expect the white-haired elder to use his trump card and hit Jian Wushuang head-on. When the strange black spear stabbed Jian Wushuang and weakened his aura, everyone was shocked. However, they were only shocked. Although Jian Wushuang had lost a lot of divine power, he was still full of battle strength, so he quickly attacked again. On the other hand, the white-haired elder was forcibly activating the power of the black spear. Although it had caused some damage to Jian Wushuang, he himself had paid a huge price. He had lost more than 70% of his divine power and even suffered a severe backlash in his soul. Now, he was seriously injured and had little battle strength left. Seeing Jian Wushuang attacking again, the elder was in disbelief. He did not expect that he could not cause much damage to Jian Wushuang despite activating the black spear. Immediately after, he revealed a look of despair. He knew that, in his current state, he would definitely die if he faced Jian Wushuang again. Sure enough, Jian Wushuang came to his side and killed him with a casual sword attack. Since then, the three masters who had specially rushed over from Devil Cloud Star Master had all died. The three of them had all died under Jian Wushuang's sword. After killing the three masters, Jian Wushuang's cold eyes immediately swept over the three masters of the Saint Realm. The three masters of the Saint Realm had long turned pale. They looked up at Jian Wushuang with despair in their hearts. It's your turn. Jian Wushuang held the Netherworld Divine Sword and walked toward the three masters of the Saint Realm step by step. The three masters of the Saint Realm were so depressed that they no longer had any intention of resisting. Even if they wanted to resist, it would be useless. After all, they were only principles masters. Even with the power of the will of heaven, they could not compete with rulers. In the divine beginning realm, in terms of battle strength, the three of them could not compare to the three rulers. Jian Wushuang could easily kill the three rulers, so it would be even easier to kill them. Heavenly Sword Marquis, you won this time. If I had known earlier, I would have killed you at all costs. I didn't expect that the three of us would really die at your hands. How ridiculous! How ridiculous! Heavenly Sword Marquis, don't be too happy. Master will definitely take revenge in his body. He will. The three masters of the Saint Realm said their last words before they were killed by Jian Wushuang. This scene completely stunned the countless cultivators from the three Saint Realms. They stared at the scene with their eyes wide open in disbelief. The Saint Master and the others are dead? How is this possible? Impossible, impossible. The Saint Master's power is monstrous, and he represents the will of the heavenly Tao. They are absolutely invincible in the divine beginning realm. No one can kill them. It's impossible. It's fake. This must be an illusion. Yes, it must be an illusion. Damn it. Why haven't I woken up from this illusion yet? Hysterical roars sounded from every corner of the three great Saint Realms. Even though they had seen the three great Saint Realm masters being killed with their own eyes, those people in the three great Saint Realms who had blindly worshipped the three great Saint Realm masters were still unwilling to believe that all of this was real. They had thought that they had just fallen into an illusion and had only seen the scene in the illusion. Even the principles masters of the three Saint Realms, they were still in disbelief. They did not care about the death of the three rulers. After all, the three rulers had suddenly appeared and did not leave a deep impression on them. They did not feel invincible, But the three Saint Realm Masters were different. Of course, no matter how unbelievable they were, it was a fact that the three Saint Realm Masters were dead. After killing the three Masters of the Saint Realm, Jian Wushuang turned his eyes to the void beside him. There was no one there. There was only a black spear floating quietly. The black divine spear had been floating quietly in the void ever since the white-haired elder had finished using it. Even though the white-haired elder had died, no one could control the black spear. It still emitted an extremely strange aura. Jian Wushuang had not paid attention to the spear immediately after killing the elder. Until now, he had killed the three masters of the Saint Realm, and the three most powerful experts of the Saint Realm had all died. Jian Wushuang looked at the spear. This spear must be destroyed. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He raised the netherworld divine sword in his hand, and an extremely powerful divine power aura burst out. Whoosh! A majestic sword shadow slashed directly at the floating black spear in an attempt to split it in half. However, when the sword light landed on the black spear, the spear was sent flying far away. However, there were no cracks on the surface of the spear, let alone any marks left by the sword shadow. This scene made Jian Wushuang's eyes narrow, but he was not surprised. The spear was extremely powerful, unique, and priceless. It was definitely a supreme treasure among supreme treasures. How could such a supreme treasure be destroyed so easily? It was like a supreme universe supreme treasure. Even if it was placed in front of Jian Wushuang, he could not destroy it no matter how hard he tried. The level of the spear was probably higher than that of the supreme universe supreme treasure. If I can't destroy it and want to suppress it, I don't have a suppression-type supreme treasure on the same level as it. It seems that I have to find a way to keep it with me. Jian Wushuang thought for a moment and made a decision. If he had no other choice, he would not want to keep the spear with him. Because the spear was too threatening to him, it had a constant impact on his life level. If he kept the spear with him, the impact would not be broken, which would make him very uncomfortable. Unfortunately, he had no choice but to keep the spear by his side. However, when Jian Wushuang reached out his hand and wanted to put the spear into his interspatial ring, boom! A supernatural power suddenly descended. Humph! Is my treasure something you can touch? A cold voice suddenly echoed in the world. This cold shout contained an unquestionable will that exploded in the world. At the moment the voice sounded, the world suddenly shook. From the void at the highest point, a giant dark green hand suddenly extended out and grabbed toward the black divine spear. The attack of this huge green hand caused the pupils of everyone present to shrink. No matter who it was, they could feel that supreme power from this huge green hand. That power did not originate from the cultivators, but from the heavenly Tao. The power of the heavenly Tao's will. The will of the heavenly Tao has descended? That's not right. The will of the heavenly Tao is only a will. The power of the heavenly Tao that can be mobilized is extremely limited. At most, it can threaten some masters of laws. However, why does this huge hand formed by the will of the heavenly Tao feel so powerful? Looking at the giant green hand that suddenly appeared, many people present were terrified, including some principals masters who were extremely powerful. The power contained in the giant green hand was indeed too powerful. At least, it was much stronger than the principals masters. Unsurprisingly, the power contained in the giant hand had reached the ruler realm. However, when could the will of the heavenly Tao in the divine beginning realm mobilize the power of the will of the ruler realm? Unless, boom! The earth began to shake violently. Jian Wushuang could vaguely feel that the moment the giant green hand extended out, the void of the divine beginning realm also had some influence. It seems that he's desperate. Jian Wushuang's eyes narrowed slightly. He knew that under normal circumstances, in order to maintain the normal operation and evolution of the divine beginning realm, the divine will could not use too much power. At most, it would be like before, he chose 3 principals masters who were not weak as his spokespersons. Then, because of the blessing of the heavenly will, these 3 people could burst out with power far stronger than that of the principals masters. These were the 3 Saint Realm Masters. But this was only under normal circumstances. But now it was obviously not under normal circumstances. The three Saint Realm Masters were dead, and the black spear was about to fall into Jian Wushuang's hands. How could Devil Cloud Star Master not be anxious? Thus, Devil Cloud Star Master recklessly mobilized the power of the heavenly will of the divine beginning realm. That was why the giant green hand had descended. Although the giant green hand had descended, it had a huge impact on the divine beginning realm at that moment. The price for it was also very high for Devil Cloud Star Master. Do you think you can get the spear back just like that? Jian Wushuang smiled coldly. Just as the giant green hand was about to grab the black spear, he moved and took a step forward. When he took a step forward, a shocking power burst out from his body. He used his life divine power and heaven-cleaving skill at the same time. At the same time, because he had refined the eternal chaotic world, he was favored by the universal laws, which gave him a lot of benefits. Among them, there was an extremely powerful willpower. Jian Wushuang had not used this willpower since he got it. But now, the power of the will was directly integrated into Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship. The most powerful skill, Starfire Burning Sun. Jian Wushuang attacked with all his strength. A sword light containing explosive power suddenly swept out. The sword light was so huge that it covered half of the world. It immediately went to meet the giant green hand. The sound of a blade passing through a person's divine body rang out. The giant green hand was cut in half by the sword light. The giant hand was cut in half, and a large amount of majestic power of the heavenly Tao spread out in all directions. The power of the universe principles? How is this possible? An unbelievable voice echoed in the deepest part of the heaven and earth. Devil Cloud Star Master knew very well that the power of the will of heavenly Tao that he mobilized at all costs was extremely powerful. Even though Jian Wushuang was strong enough now, he was confident that he could still resist or even suppress him. But in the end, his giant hand formed by the power of heavenly Tao was cut open. The power contained in that sword and the special power contained in it completely shocked Devil Cloud Star Master. He knew that the power had already surpassed that of most advanced rulers. The extremely special but supreme power contained in the sword was even the power of the universe principles. Even if Jian Wushuang's swordsmanship only contained a trace of the universe principles, it could still make his swordsmanship extremely terrifying. It seems that the arrival of the universe principles really gave you a lot of good things. The mighty voice sounded again. Jian Wushuang sneered. But at this moment, Jian Wushuang's pupil suddenly shrank because he had noticed that at the same time when he used his swordsmanship to cut the giant green hand into two, a strange figure had appeared beside the black spear. He put the black spear into his interspatial ring. After doing all this, the figure did not leave immediately. Instead, she stood there and looked at him calmly. This person. Jian Wushuang looked at the person. She was an extremely beautiful woman. Her temperament was cold and without any emotion. She looked at him with a strange smile in her eyes. "It's you, Ruler Star Luo." Jian Wushuang's voice turned cold. He had already recognized her. In his previous life, he had interacted with Ruler Star Luo in the eternal chaotic world, so he knew her appearance very well. The person in front of him was obviously Ruler Star Luo. She looked exactly the same and her aura was exactly the same. The only difference was that Ruler Star Luo had only sent a consciousness clone to the eternal chaotic world, but now it was her original body. She also possessed the strength of a real ruler. Jian Wushuang, I really didn't expect that you could reach such a level in such a short time. Not only the three masters of the Saint Realm in the divine beginning realm, but even the three masters from the Devil Cloud Star died at your hands. Ruler Star Luo stared at Jian Wushuang. Since you know that the three masters of the Saint Realm and the three rulers from the Devil Cloud Star have died at my hands, how dare you show up in front of me? You even dare to steal my things. You have guts. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Haha, Jian Wushuang, you underestimate me. Although we are both rulers, I'm not as useless as that trash. In the divine beginning realm, I can't do anything to you. But if I want to leave, you can't stop me. With that, Ruler Star Luo disappeared in front of Jian Wushuang. Before she disappeared, Jian Wushuang's soul power had already locked onto her. However, as soon as she disappeared, Jian Wushuang found that his soul power had lost its target. No matter how much his soul power swept around, he could not find any trace of her. Temporal, can you sense her existence? Jian Wushuang immediately asked. At present, the world was still confined by Temporal Temple Master, so logically, everything in this spacetime should be within his sensing range. However, after hearing Jian Wushuang's words, Temporal Temple Master frowned. No, I can't sense her existence. It's very likely that she has cultivated some special secret skill or has some special treasure with her. In short, I can't sense her. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang's face turned extremely ugly. Jian Wushuang, I told you I'm leaving. You can't keep me here. Goodbye. I hope you're still alive when we meet again. Ruler Star Luo's voice rang out again and slowly faded away. However, the voice did come from all directions at the same time. Even though it was slowly fading away, Jian Wushuang still could not identify the position of Ruler Star Luo through the voice. Damn it! Jian Wushuang could not help cursing in his heart. He was extremely angry. He was angry not only because Ruler Star Luo had snatched the long spear and left him with a big threat in the future. Most importantly, Ruler Star Luo was Lung Rushua's master. Only she knew where Lung Rushua was. He had thought that if Ruler Star Luo appeared, he could capture her or suppress her and force her to tell him where Lung Rushua was. But now, he could only watch her leave. How could he not be angry? After Ruler Star Luo left, Heavenly Sword Marquis, you are not bad. I will remember you. Soon, my true body will come here personally. At that time, I will let you die like your master, Xianxia, in pain and despair. Ha 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 ha. A deranged laughter echoed in the air, but it gradually disappeared. Jian Wushuang's face was cold. He looked down at the ground and slowly raised his right hand. Kill all 3 Saint Realms, with Jian Wushuang's order. In the 4 directions around the 3 Saint Realms, except for the 4 Divine Clans and the 4 Heaven Sect Coalition Army led by Shower, the Saint Army and many Principles Masters from the other 3 directions all moved out. Numerous experts were rushing toward the 3 Saint Realms from different directions. The shouts and cries of killing soared to the sky. In just a moment, the 3 Saint Realms were drowned in a frenzy of fighting. The situation in this fight was completely one-sided. The 3 Saint Realms were very strong and had a deep foundation. However, no matter how strong they were, there was still a huge gap between them and more than 90% of the high-level experts in the Divine Beginning Realm. Not to mention, the 3 Saint Realms' biggest reliance was also the God in the hearts of countless cultivators in the 3 Saint Realms. The 3 Saint Realm Masters had already died. Moreover, they were easily killed by Jian Wushuang in front of countless experts in the 3 Saint Realms. The death of the 3 Saint Realm Masters was too much of a shock to the cultivators in the 3 Saint Realms. It also made them lose their backbone in an instant. They completely lost their fighting spirit and faced the oncoming armies. It was almost impossible to stop the effective resistance and counterattack. In the end, they were at the mercy of others. The massacre. This war was a one-sided massacre. Of course, Jian Wushuang would not act personally in this massacre. After killing the 3 Masters of the Saint Realm and giving the order to destroy the 3 Saint Realms, he returned to the void where the 7-star Mysterious Sect and the Eternal Chaotic World were located with the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and Temporal Temple Master. As for the fierce battle that followed, he just watched it coldly. Not only him, the experts from the 7-star Mysterious Sect and the people from the Eternal Chaotic World were also watching. The experts from the 7-star Mysterious Sect were all excited when they saw the scene in front of them. As for the people from the Eternal Chaotic World, their faces were all pale. To the cultivators from the Eternal Chaotic World, the scene before their eyes was simply too shocking. Countless experts were madly fighting. Any one of these experts was unbelievably strong in their eyes. However, the experts participating in this exhibition had reached the level of 1,000,000. Such a terrifying and inconceivable battle. They had never thought about it before. But now they had seen it with their own eyes. It had happened right in front of them. Moreover, they had just arrived at the Divine Beginning Realm, yet they had already seen this great battle. The shock in their hearts couldn't be described with words. Moreover, through this battle, they clearly understood what kind of world the divine beginning realm was. Not only were there countless experts here, but there were also endless massacres. In this place, the eternal chaotic world was even crazier and crueler. Just like the battle before them, it was extremely cruel. It's too cruel. Although these three great saint realms are detestable and should be destroyed, many of the cultivators in these three great saint realms are actually innocent. In particular, many of them are children who haven't experienced many storms. But now they are being killed together. Almost no one can survive. Ji Wuming frowned when he saw the scene in the picture. He was obviously unhappy. Jian Nantian, who was next to him, was a little calmer. Jian Wushuang had yet to speak when he heard Ji Wuming's words, but Xian Yan, who was from the 7-star mysterious sex camp, said directly, "Is this cruel? Wasn't it the same when our 7-star mysterious sect was destroyed? If Xianyi didn't create that layer of array, do you think that one of my 7-star mysterious sect would have been left alive? Not to mention my 7-star mysterious sect, even the entire 7-star divine realm probably wouldn't have a single living person. As for the eternal chaotic world formed in the future, that's simply a joke. It's impossible for it to exist anymore. This is the divine beginning realm, not the eternal chaotic world that you've stayed in before. Compared to the world you've stayed in, this place abides by the laws of the jungle. The strong prey on the weak, and strength reigns supreme. Back then, my 7-star mysterious sex strength wasn't enough, and we were almost doomed. But today, the same result has happened. It's just that the target is these three great saint realms." Xian Yan's expression was extremely cold. The experts of the 7-star mysterious sect also had the same expression. They did not have the slightest bit of pity toward the three saint realm cultivators who had been crazily massacred. Some of them even had a trace of pleasure. This pleasure stemmed from their revenge. Xian Yan's words shocked everyone from the eternal chaotic world. Ji Wuming's frown deepened. "Mother, this is indeed the case in the divine beginning realm. There is no mercy here, especially for the enemy," Jian Wushuang said. "If we let the cultivators of the three saint realms leave today, they will not hesitate to show their claws at us in the coming year. They will stab us in the back when they have the chance. Mother, you have just arrived in the divine beginning realm, so you don't know much about it. But you will get used to it after a long time." Ji Wuming nodded and did not say anything else. 2 days and 3 nights. The great battle within the three great saint realms lasted for 2 days and 3 nights. This was very normal. After all, the three great saint realms were too big, and there were too many cultivators. Even if the allied armies of the various forces all attacked, it would still take some time to kill all the cultivators of the three great saint realms. 2 days and 3 nights were still under the situation where the experts from the highest echelons of the various factions personally took action. After the great battle ended, the three great saint realms, which had stood tall in the divine beginning realm for countless years and were supported by the will of the heavenly Tao, were finally completely wiped out. They were completely wiped out. There were practically no fish that escaped the net. As for the countless resources and treasures left behind by the three great saint realms, a small number of them had been snatched away during the battle. However, the majority of them were still gathered together and distributed. Wang. In the vast void, countless figures stood erect. The armies of experts from various forces remained in this void, and no one left. In the center of this void, thrones condensed from divine power stood erect. On these thrones, there were many figures emitting tyrannical auras. These figures, they were the rulers of the forces participating in the war or the highest level. In front of these people, there were 5 towering thrones floating quietly. These 5 thrones were obviously higher than the other thrones, but no one dared to object. Because the people on these 5 thrones were the 5 strongest and most powerful people in the divine beginning realm. They were Jian Wushuang, Taoist Shen God, Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, Temporal Temple Master, and Heaven Ancestor. Except for Jian Wushuang, the other 4 were all rulers. Although Jian Wushuang was not a ruler, his battle strength was above that of a ruler. Moreover, he was the absolute main force in this battle. He had single-handedly killed the 3 Saint Realm Masters and 3 rulers from the Devil Cloud Star. Therefore, he sat in the middle of the 5. Xianxia was also a ruler, but he was from the 7-star mysterious sect. Now that the Shen God was there, he did not need to show up. Shen God, Heaven Ancestor, how is the Star Palace? Jian Wushuang asked. While the forces of the Divine Beginning Realm attacked the 3 Saint Realms, on the universe battlefield, Taoist Shen God and Heaven Ancestor led the Star Palace to attack the Holy Island. Now that the 3 Saint Realms had been destroyed, the Holy Island should have a result. It's over. The Holy Island has been destroyed. More than 80% of the hundreds of Principles Masters have been killed. Although some escaped, it's not a big deal, Taoist Shen God said with a smile. His and the Heaven Ancestors' original bodies were still on the Holy Island. As for the ones who had arrived, they were just consciousness incarnations. That's good. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. This time, the Divine Beginning Realm and the universe battlefield had attacked at the same time, and the final result could be considered satisfactory. The only regret was that he had not destroyed or obtained the Black Spear. After this battle, the 3 Saint Realms can be said to be completely destroyed. Next, it's time to divide the spoils of war, Jian Wushuang said grandly. After hearing his words, the rulers and the highest-level officials from all sides became excited. They had left without destroying the 3 Saint Realms to divide the spoils of war. After all, the 3 Saint Realms had been the overlords of the Divine Beginning Realm. Not only did the 3 Saint Realms have countless resources and treasures, but they also had countless territories, secret realms, and all kinds of things, especially the territories where the 3 Saint Realms were located. This was the most superior territory for the cultivation of illusions in the 3rd heaven. Who would not be envious? Heavenly Sword Marquis. A figure stood up from below. This person was the sect master of the Bloodfire Heaven sect, one of the 8 Directions Celestial sect who participated in the battle. As the sect master of a heaven sect and a top expert in the Divine Beginning Realm, he had once regarded Jian Wushuang as a little guy. But now that he had personally experienced this battle, the strength that Jian Wushuang displayed, all the experts were impressed by him, including the sect master of the Bloodfire sect. Therefore, the sect master of the Bloodfire sect was now extremely respectful to Jian Wushuang, and he naturally addressed him as Sir. Lord Heavenly Sword Marquis, there are too many sects participating in the extermination of the 3 Saint Realms. Although it seems that the results of this battle are great, I'm afraid it won't be easy to distribute them. So, how do you plan to distribute the results of this battle? The sect master of the Bloodfire sect looked at Jian Wushuang carefully. It's simple. We will distribute the results according to the strength of each force. The stronger the force, the more contribution they make, and the more results they will get. First of all, I was the first to kill the 3 rulers and 3 masters of the Saint Realm, which basically made the 3 Saint Realms lose the ability to resist. Therefore, I want 30% of the results. Jian Wushuang was very direct and did not beat around the bush. He alone wanted 30% of the battle results. When he said this, most of the people on the field secretly nodded and did not have any objections. This was very normal because the most crucial part of the battle was the 3 masters of the Saint Realm and the 3 rulers from the Devil Cloud Star. If the 3 masters of the Saint Realm were still alive, the battle would not have been possible. It was because Jian Wushuang killed them that the 3 Saint Realms were destroyed. Therefore, Jian Wushuang contributed the most to this battle. It was reasonable for him to ask for 30% of the battle results. Even if he asked for 50%, not many people would object considering Jian Wushuang's monstrous strength. Of course, although most people agreed, a few people were secretly dissatisfied and felt that Jian Wushuang was too greedy. After all, Jian Wushuang was only one person, and there were no forces or sects under his command. If he wanted 30% of the results, what was the use of it? It was normal for these people to think so. After all, the spoils of war were mainly the resources and treasures left behind by the 3 Saint Realms. The 3 Saint Realms had dominated the Divine Beginning Realm for so long, so they had accumulated too many resources and treasures. 30% of the resources was enough for a large force and sect to squander for a long time. Jian Wushuang was alone, so why did he need so many resources? They did not know that Jian Wushuang himself did not need these resources, but the people around him did. First of all, it was the 7-star mysterious sect. After the battle, the 7-star mysterious sect had lost all its resources. Although they now had the opportunity to rise again, they naturally needed a lot of resources in addition to a certain number of experts. Therefore, Jian Wushuang wanted 30% of the resources. 10% of the resources would definitely be reserved for the 7-star mysterious sect. With this 10% of resources, it would be easy for the remaining experts of the 7-star mysterious sect to rise again. As for the other 20% of the resources, Jian Wushuang prepared them for the many cultivators in the eternal chaotic world. The eternal chaotic world was still far from the divine beginning realm. Those cultivators who came to the divine beginning realm from the eternal chaotic world would definitely need a place to stay. Therefore, Jian Wushuang planned to find a territory in the divine beginning realm and create a force. These resources would be used to operate that force. Although some people were dissatisfied with Jian Wushuang's demand for 30% of the battle results, no one dared to say anything. Seeing this, Jian Wushuang spoke again. Among the remaining 70% of the battle results, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the Temporal Temple, the Heaven Ancestor Taoist sect, and the 4 great divine clans contributed the most, each taking 10%. As for the remaining 30%, it will be evenly distributed among the 8 Directions Celestial Sect, the Purple Blood Sect, the Supreme Emotion-Forgetting Valley, and more than a dozen other major forces. I wonder who is here to object to this distribution. Jian Wushuang did not say who had different opinions, but directly said who opposed it. The meaning of this was very clear. It meant that he had already decided on this distribution and would not change it. For the various forces present, Jian Wushuang's distribution was considered fair. Even if there were a few who were dissatisfied, they would not dare to voice their objections at this moment. After all, to object in front of so many people was to refute Jian Wushuang's face. Who would dare to do so? Jian Wushuang looked down coldly for a long time. Seeing that no one objected, he said, "Since no one objects, then the resources and treasures of the 3 Saint Realms will be distributed in this way. In addition to these resources and treasures, there is one more thing, which is about the territories and territories controlled by the 3 Saint Realms. Those who held power or were at the highest level immediately perked up. To them, the greatest result of this battle was not the resources and treasures left behind by the 3 great Saint Realms, but the territories and territories. The 3 great Saint Realms had dominated the divine beginning realm for so long, and the territories they controlled had always been the best in the divine beginning realm, especially the headquarters of the 3 great Saint Realms, which was the void they were currently in. This place was the core of the 3rd heaven. Even though they had just encountered a fierce battle, the battle had only destroyed the various construction arrays in this territory. It would not have much of an impact on the cultivation environment of this territory. This was still the territory with the best cultivation environment in the divine beginning realm. Such a territory would naturally be of great use to cultivators. If any force or sect could occupy this territory and make it their home, then their disciples' cultivation speed would definitely be much faster than in other places. The chances of producing experts would naturally be higher. That was why they cared so much about these territories. Under everyone's anticipation, Jian Wushuang spoke. "I don't care about the territories and territories that the 3 Saint Realms previously controlled. However, the territories where the 3 Saint Realms are located will be controlled by the 7-star mysterious sect. I wonder if there are any different opinions on this." Jian Wushuang let everyone express their opinions. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance has no objections. The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master was the first to speak. Temporal Temple Master, no objections. Temporal Temple Master also said, "The 7-star mysterious sect was destroyed by the 3 Saint Realms. Now that the 7-star mysterious sect is going to rise again, it's reasonable for it to occupy the nest of the 3 Saint Realms." The Heaven Ancestor Taoist sect also has no objections. The Heaven Ancestor said. The 3 Freedom Alliances all made their positions clear. When the sects below saw this, they looked at each other and did not dare to say anything more. Judging from Jian Wushuang's attitude and the attitude of the 3 Freedom Alliances, It was obvious that they had decided to give the territory where the three Saint Realms were located to the seven-star mysterious sect so that the seven-star mysterious sect could rise again. In that case, there was no chance for them to force it. Of course, even if the best territory was given to the seven-star mysterious sect, the remaining territories that the three Saint Realms had previously controlled were still very attractive to them. You can divide the remaining things among yourselves. Jian Wushuang waved his hand, but he had already turned around and left. The three Freedom Alliances are not interested in territories and territories. You can take care of those things yourself. The leader of the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, who was the representative of the three Freedom Alliances, said this and then left. As for the four divine races, since they already had a huge monster territory with good cultivation conditions, they were not interested in other places, so they did not get involved in the fight for territories and territories. On the contrary, the 8 Directions Celestial Sect and the dozen or so powerful forces began to fight over these territories. Of course, no matter how they fought, it had nothing to do with Jian Wushuang. Above the void, Jian Wushuang, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, the Temporal Temple Master, Taoist Shen God, and the Heaven Ancestors Consciousness clones stood there, looking down at the ground. The three Saint Realms have been destroyed after all. Jian Wushuang sighed. He clearly remembered that he had been pushed to the limit by the three Saint Realms several times. On several occasions, he had almost died at the hands of the three Saint Realms. At the same time, since his last life, the three Saint Realms had been like a mountain to him. This mountain had been blocking him and even wanted to crush him, but he had been lucky enough to survive until now. Finally, the mountain was completely shattered. Once upon a time, the three Saint Realms were like a giant to me. I was scared just by looking at them, but now, they are just ruins. Jian Wushuang chuckled, but a complicated look flashed in his eyes. Seeing the three Saint Realms completely destroyed by him, Jian Wushuang felt a strange emotion in his heart, except for the joy of revenge. After all, they were the three Saint Realms. They had a deep heritage and had been high and mighty in the divine beginning realm for countless years. But now, they were completely destroyed in just 2 days and vanished into thin air in the divine beginning realm. Thinking back to the seven-star mysterious sect, in terms of strength, it was much stronger than the three great Saint Realms. It even had a total of 3 ruler-level experts, but it had also perished in a great battle. Fortunately, it had Xianyi's methods, otherwise the seven-star mysterious sect would have been completely submerged in history. It would not have had the chance to rise up again until now. Even the powerful 3 great Saint Realms and the seven-star mysterious sect were the same. Moreover, the Lingyun planet that he had joined in the Devil Smoke Valley was a great force in the depths of the universe. The Lingyun Planet Master was a supreme being with extraordinary strength. He was a ruler in the depths of the universe. But in the end, the Lingyun planet was also destroyed. Countless experts died and fled. The whereabouts of the Lingyun Planet Master was also unknown. With the change of times, no force or sect could guarantee their prosperity in this world. What they could do was to improve their strength as much as possible. Only with absolute strength could they truly protect themselves. Jian Wushuang was still far from that step. Although he was now invincible in the divine beginning realm, he was still very weak in the entire universe. Although the 3 Saint Realms have been destroyed, the divine beginning realm is not completely peaceful. There is still a force that needs to be destroyed, Jian Wushuang suddenly said. My young friend, you must be talking about the Sorcerer God's sect, right? Temporal Temple Master looked at him. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. The Sorcerer God's sect. Compared to the powerful and overbearing 3 Saint Realms, the Sorcerer God's sect had been hiding in the dark. The Sorcerer God's sect had been trying to capture special life forms and some high-level bloodline experts. No one knew what the Sorcerer God's sect was planning to do, and no one knew where their lair was. However, the Sorcerer God's sect had been active in the Primordial God for many years, and there was more or less a shadow of the Sorcerer God's sect behind many things. Jian Wushuang also knew that the 3 Saint Realms and the Sorcerer God's sect used to be on the same side. When the 3 Saint Realms set an inescapable net to kill him on the Saha Island, the Sorcerer God's sect also made a move. They helped the 3 Saint Realms. A long time ago, there was a so-called prophet in the Sorcerer God's sect. He used his special means to find his position and sent the Principal's Master to kill him, but in the end he failed. Jian Wushuang would never forget a mysterious force like the Sorcerer God sect. This time he destroyed the three Saint Realms. He thought that the Sorcerer God sect would join in and help the three Saint Realms fight against his camp. But after this battle, he did not see any experts from the Sorcerer God sect. The Sorcerer God sect did not participate in the battle at all. Until the three Saint Realms were completely destroyed, no one from the Sorcerer God sect showed up. This made Jian Wushuang very confused. This Sorcerer God sect is very unique, Temple Master said. According to my information, the leader of the Sorcerer God sect is not a cultivator from the divine beginning realm. He is a ruler from the outside world. Under normal circumstances, rulers from the outside world will be repelled by the heavenly Tao will of the astral world when they come to an ordinary astral world. Their power will be greatly suppressed, and they are much stronger than us rulers who were born in this astral world. However, the suppression that the Sorcerer God received in the divine beginning realm doesn't seem to be that great. Many years ago, I exchanged blows with him. The power he was able to unleash wasn't much weaker than mine. Could it be that this god also came from Devil Cloud Star? Is he an expert under the command of the Devil Cloud Star Master? The Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master said. No. If he is an expert from Devil Cloud Star, then we won't be surprised by the power he is able to display, Taoist Shen God said. More importantly, the people of our star palace have sent word that the Devil Cloud Star doesn't have a ruler like the Sorcerer God. Besides, if the Sorcerer God really is from the Devil Cloud Star, then why didn't he make a move when we annihilated the three great Saint Realms? You must know that in the previous battle, the three rulers from the Devil Cloud Star all made a move, and were all killed by our young friend, the Heavenly Sword Marquis. Even in the end, when that Hegemon Xinglua made an appearance, the Sorcerer God still didn't make an appearance. Thus, we can be certain that the Sorcerer God isn't an expert from the Devil Cloud Star. Perhaps, for some special reason, he reached an agreement with the Devil Cloud Star Master. That's why he could stay in the divine beginning realm, and his power wasn't suppressed too much. Besides, the Devil Cloud Star Master also tacitly allowed him to do some things in the dark, such as capturing special life forms. If that's the case, the Sorcerer God sect is quite mysterious, said the Heaven Ancestor. Regardless of the purpose of the Sorcerer God's sect in the divine beginning realm, and regardless of whether the martial god has made some kind of agreement with Star Master Moyun, the Sorcerer God sect should not exist because it has repeatedly helped the three Saint Realms to deal with me, as well as the shameful things that the Sorcerer God sect has done in the divine beginning realm over the years. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, Temporal Master, and Heaven Ancestor, please try your best to use the intelligence of your alliance to find the base of the Sorcerer God sect. Although the three Saint Realms have been destroyed, if we let the Sorcerer God sect continue to exist and do all kinds of shameful things, we will still have a hard time sleeping and eating. We must find the Sorcerer God sect and destroy it. Hearing Jian Wushuang's words, the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master and the others also nodded. They were also aware of the potential threat of the Sorcerer God sect. If the Sorcerer God sect continued to exist in the divine beginning realm, it would be like a time bomb to the divine beginning realm. Who knows when it would suddenly explode? Therefore, it was better to find it quickly and destroy it. Don't worry. We will immediately send people to investigate. No matter how well the Sorcerer God sect is hidden, as long as it's in the divine beginning realm, it can't escape the eyes of the three Freedom Alliances, Temporal Temple Master said. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. Jian Wushuang still believed in the abilities of the three Freedom Alliances. The three great Saint Realms had been destroyed. This news was like a huge storm. In just a few days it had swept through the entire third heaven, and even the entire divine beginning realm. The entire divine beginning realm, countless forces, countless sects, and countless cultivators were all shocked by this news. Could not be helped. To many people, this news was simply too shocking. The three great Saint Realms had been aloof in the divine beginning realm for too long. They were like three giants looking down on everything. The three lofty Saint Realm Masters were invincible existences in the hearts of almost everyone. It was even rumored that the three Saint Realm Masters were the representatives of the heavenly Tao of the divine beginning realm. They represented the heavenly Tao of the divine beginning realm. However, just like that, the three great Saint Realms, which had three invincible masters of the Saint Realm, were completely destroyed. It was as if the heavenly Tao of the divine beginning realm had been completely reversed. It was simply too unbelievable. Therefore, when many people first received this news, they scoffed at it and did not believe it at all. It was not until later, when this news spread wantonly, and even the mirror image of the battle spread out, that this news was completely confirmed. The three Saint Realms had indeed been destroyed. And the reason for this result was largely because of the existence of one person. That person was Heavenly Sword Marquis. 100,000 years ago, he had killed a Principles Master as a Saint Realm expert. At that time, he had fought against a Saint Realm Master and was known as the #1 genius in the history of the divine beginning realm. At that time, Jian Wushuang revealed his talent. It was truly terrifying. Countless people in the divine beginning realm were shocked by his talent. However, no matter how shocked they were, talent did not represent his true strength. For example, there had been many amazing geniuses in the divine beginning realm. These geniuses had shocked people for a time, but in the end, very few of them were able to walk on the path to the peak. Therefore, Jian Wushuang's existence at that time was only remembered by many people. Most sects and powers did not really take him seriously. But now, the super genius who shocked everyone 100,000 years ago had displayed incredible strength. He had killed three masters of the Saint Realm in the battle that destroyed the three Saint Realms. At the same time, he had killed three masters of the Saint Realm experts who had been invited by the three Saint Realms. Such terrifying strength had truly shocked everyone. After all, masters of the Saint Realm, including rulers, were almost invincible in the divine beginning realm. This had long been recognized by everyone. However, Jian Wushuang had killed three masters of the Saint Realm and rulers at the same time. What did this mean? It meant that Jian Wushuang's battle strength in the divine beginning realm was far stronger than that of a master of the Saint Realm, or even an ordinary ruler. It was certain that his battle strength in the divine beginning realm was much stronger than the leaders of the three Freedom Alliances, including the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, the Temporal Temple Master, and the Heaven Ancestor. Therefore, after the battle, Jian Wushuang's strength was recognized by countless cultivators as the #1 person in the divine beginning realm. This matter was quickly spread to the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance, the Temporal Temple, and the Heaven Ancestor Taoist sect. However, neither the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master, the Temporal Temple Master, or the Heaven Ancestor came forward to refute, but chose to acquiesce. It was very normal. First of all, these three people had a very good relationship with Jian Wushuang, and they were all on the same side. Secondly, Jian Wushuang's battle strength was indeed much stronger than the three of them in the divine beginning realm alone, because they would be greatly restricted in the divine beginning realm, but Jian Wushuang was not. As for the universe battlefield, Jian Wushuang's battle strength was also at the advanced ruler realm. Among them, perhaps only the Heaven-Cleaving Alliance Master could fight. In that case, it was well deserved to say that Jian Wushuang was the #1 person in the divine beginning realm. The tacit agreement of the three rulers completely confirmed Jian Wushuang's title as the #1 person in the divine beginning realm. Soon, the name of Heavenly Sword Marquis resounded throughout the entire divine beginning realm. This time, his fame and status in the divine beginning realm had completely surpassed those ancient rulers. The #1 expert in the divine beginning realm, Heavenly Sword Marquis, was completely implemented. The vast universe was boundless. In a territory that was a certain distance away from the divine beginning realm, although it was still at the edge of the universe, it was no longer a barren place in the universe. There were hundreds of astral worlds in this territory alone, and there were a total of 6 Grade 2 astral worlds. One had to know that there was not a single Grade 2 world star in the star domain where the divine beginning realm was located. Among the 6 Grade 2 world stars, there was a world star that was surrounded by a large amount of black fog. It was like a devil cloud that was constantly rolling. This star world was the Devil Cloud Star. In front of the dark purple Grand Hall, there was a burly man who was over 3 meters tall. His hair was messy and his entire body was dirty. He was extremely slovenly. Behind him, There was a snow-white demonic wolf that was crawling on the ground. The man and the beast were leaning against each other. They looked relaxed and satisfied. "I wonder when this day will end," the burly man muttered. He flipped his hand and took out a wine flask. He raised his head and took a big gulp. However, he did not have the time to put down the wine flask. Humph! A cold snort suddenly exploded in this world. This cold snort carried a trace of anger. Hearing this cold snort, the burly man jumped in fright. The wine flask in his hand almost fell out. He and the demon wolf immediately stood up. "Tell the Ice Mist King that I will give him another 30,000 years at most. If he does not meet my requirements within 30,000 years, I will immediately flatten his ice mist astral world." A cold and domineering voice sounded in this world. "Yes, sir." The burly man immediately bowed and accepted the order. After the voice gradually disappeared, the burly man and the demon wolf beside him finally let out a sigh of relief. "What's going on? Didn't the Star Master give the Ice Mist King 100,000 years? Why did he only give him 30,000 years? According to what I know, the Ice Mist King has been following the Star Master's orders all these years. Did he not disobey the Star Master's orders?" The burly man muttered. "Who knows? In any case, since the Star Master has given his orders, the Ice Mist King can only obediently follow them." The demon wolf spoke in the human voice. TSK 30,000 years. To meet such a requirement, the Ice Mist King is in trouble this time. I wonder why the Star Master is so angry. The burly man smiled faintly. "I heard that not too long ago, the Star Master sent 3 hegemons to accomplish an extremely important task. Could it be that something unexpected happened in this matter?" The muscular man asked. "Who cares? It has nothing to do with us," Demon Wolf said. "That's true." The muscular man laughed, then quickly left to deliver the order. Within the depths of the towering, deep violet hall, an endless, gloomy aura filled the entire hall. Within the black fog at the very center of the hall, a pair of cold eyes suddenly opened. "Heavenly Sword Marquis, this is getting interesting. Just you wait. It won't be long before I personally come looking for you. Haha." A maniacal laughter rang out. This laughter lingered in the hall for a long time. In the divine beginning realm, the old nest of the 3 great saint realms was now in ruins. However, these ruins could be rebuilt. Now, the experts of the 7-star mysterious sect were starting to rebuild. As for the many sects and forces that had participated in this battle, they left one by one after they divided the spoils of war among themselves. The army of experts under the command of the 4 divine races had also returned to the demon realm, but Shower, who was now publicly recognized as the ruler of the 4 divine races, remained temporarily. The original reason was, of course, because of Di Shursan. On the calm lake, a wooden boat was drifting with the wind. On the wooden boat, a man and a woman were leaning against each other, whispering to each other. From time to time, faint laughter could be heard. When Jian Wushuang came to the surrounding void and saw the scene below, his expression became strange. The 2 people on the wooden boat below were, of course, Di Shursan and Shower. The 2 of them had always been in love with each other. In that battle, Shower had even turned against the 9-tailed clan for Di Shursan. In the end, because of the destruction of the 7-star mysterious sect, the entire 7-star divine realm was sealed. Di Shursan had remained in the sealed time, while Shower had started the 9 reincarnations to cultivate the 9-life succubus skill. Now, after countless years, the 2 of them finally met again. Although so many years had passed, the feelings between them had not changed at all. What surprised Jian Wushuang was Di Shursan's current appearance. In his impression, Di Shursan was an extremely cold and arrogant person. He had started to interact with Di Shursan in his previous life. Speaking of which, they had been friends for many years. The Di Shursan he met had always had a cold face. No matter who he was facing, whether it was his own people or his enemies, his expression had never changed. But now, when Di Shursan and Shower were together, there was no trace of coldness. The smile on his face was so natural. "I didn't expect Di Shursan to have such a side." Jian Wushuang smiled. Then he rushed down and soon appeared in front of Di Shisan and Shower. "Jian Wushuang, you're here." Seeing Jian Wushuang coming, the smile on Di Shisan's face disappeared and turned into an ice mountain again. "Heavenly Sword Marquis." Shower bowed respectfully. Although Jian Wushuang was once her ally, and his strength was not as good as hers for a long time, and even a long time ago Jian Wushuang was just a little guy in front of her, but now Jian Wushuang was already recognized as the #1 expert in the divine beginning realm. He could easily kill a ruler and a master of the saint realm. Shower could not help but feel a trace of respect for such a super expert. "Di Shisan, did I disturb you?" Jian Wushuang asked playfully. No, Di Shisan shook his head. "Palace Master Shen Yan and the others are already handling the matters in the 7-star mysterious sect. I don't think they need my help. Are you here for that matter?" Di Shisan had already guessed Jian Wushuang's intention. Jian Wushuang smiled. He said, "As you know, in the divine beginning realm and even in the surrounding star field, you're probably the only one who can match me in sword principle comprehension. Your sword principle once made me look up to you. Now that I've finally caught up with you, I naturally want to have a face-to-face fight with you. Previously, in the eternal chaotic world, we were unable to fully display our sword principle strength. But now, in the divine beginning realm, we don't have any scruples. Di Shisan, how long will it take for your strength to recover to its peak?" Jian Wushuang asked him. He wanted to fight with Di Shisan. Of course, Jian Wushuang only wanted to compete with him in teaching. As for his strength, he was much stronger than Di Shisan. If it was a battle between two people, it would be unfair to Di Shisan. However, he also knew that Di Shisan had been in the eternal chaotic world for a long time. He had been sleeping for a long time and was completely in the weakest state. Although he had returned to the divine beginning realm now, it would definitely take time for him to recover to his peak. "About 30 years, Di Shisan said. 30 years. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. "In that case, I'll come back to you in 30 years. I'll wait." Di Shisan nodded. "Goodbye." Jian Wushuang smiled and left. After Jian Wushuang left, "Shisan, are you really going to fight with Heavenly Sword Marquis?" Shower immediately looked at him. "Of course. We had an agreement when we were in the eternal chaotic world, and we can't avoid it," Di Shisan said. "But in terms of strength, this Heavenly Sword Marquis can easily kill even Saint Realm Masters and Rulers?" Shower frowned. "In terms of strength, I am definitely far inferior to him. However, I am only competing with him in sword Dao and swordsmanship. In this aspect, I am confident that I will not lose to him," Di Shisan said with a smile. "In other words, you are confident in defeating him in that battle?" Shower was surprised. "Not really. When he fought against those 3 hegemons, I could tell that his understanding of the Tao of the sword wasn't much lower than mine. In addition, he created a high-grade Tier 7 absolute art. Although it was only one type, that sword attack of his was extremely formidable. It can be said that there isn't much of a gap between him and me in terms of understanding of the Tao of the sword and in terms of sword arts. However, there is one point. The sword arts he created aren't as comprehensive as mine. Therefore, when the time comes for a real battle, my chances of winning should be 70%, while his chances are 30%, Di Shisan said calmly. His words seemed a little arrogant. But in fact, those who were familiar with Di Shisan knew that he was an extremely arrogant person, and he never exaggerated. Since he said that he had a 70% chance of winning, those who were familiar with him knew that his chance of winning was more than 70% or even 80% or even 90%. Although Di Shisan had existed many years ago and had not made any progress in sword principle because he had been sleeping, his understanding of sword principle had always been unparalleled. Now, although Jian Wushuang was qualified to compete with him in sword principle, it was still unknown whether he could really surpass him. The divine beginning realm was a vast and boundless territory. It was the edge of the endless territory, and beyond it was the core of the divine beginning realm, the third heaven. At this moment, Jian Wushuang had arrived with the people of the eternal chaotic world. "This is it." Jian Wushuang looked down at the land with a calm gaze. This territory was still within the endless territory. The cultivation environment here was certainly not comparable to the third heaven, but the level of the cultivators here was far from comparable to the third heaven. In this place, a saint could become an ruler. A divine master was also a top existence in a holy world. Jian Wushuang naturally would not take a second look at such a place, but it was big enough for the people of the eternal chaotic world. Because of the restrictions of heaven and earth, the most powerful cultivators in the eternal chaotic world were only at the Emperor realm, which was only at the Chaos realm. The Chaos realm was an ant in the endless territories. They still had a long way to go. If Jian Wushuang placed them in the third heaven, they could do so because of his existence. However, for the cultivators in the eternal chaotic world, they lacked a lot of experience. What Jian Wushuang wanted now was for the cultivators in the eternal chaotic world to have a place to stay after they came out of the eternal chaotic world. Then, they could rely on their own abilities to slowly grow and step by step reach the peak. Therefore, it was undoubtedly the best choice to place the cultivators of the eternal chaotic world in the endless territories. Moreover, this place was at the edge of the endless territories, close to the third heaven. Even if the cultivators of the eternal chaotic world grew up in the future, it would be convenient for them to go to the third heaven. With Jian Wushuang's existence, the people of the eternal chaotic world soon occupied a holy world in this territory. This holy world was originally called the Holy World of All Heaven, but after it was occupied by the cultivators of the eternal chaotic world, and was renamed the Eternal Realm. Without a doubt, Jian Wushuang was the leader of the eternal saint world. Besides Jian Wushuang, the strongest white emperor was equivalent to the deputy leader. When Jian Wushuang was not around, there were many matters in the eternal saint world. It's up to the white emperor. The eternal saint world was just beginning to be created, and everything was in ruins. Fortunately, with Jian Wushuang, the #1 expert in the primordial chaos, many of the initial steps could be saved. As for the resources, Jian Wushuang had directly left 20% of the resources from the 3 saint realms in the eternal saint world. This amount of resources was too huge, not to mention the eternal saint world, which had just emerged from the eternal chaotic world. Even building a force that was comparable to the 8 directions celestial sect or the 4 divine clans would be very easy. Jian Wushuang gave these resources to the white emperor, but there were some restrictions. After all, although there were many resources, considering that there would be an endless stream of experts coming to the divine beginning realm in the eternal chaotic world, these resources could not be wasted too much. In addition, Jian Wushuang had left behind many tricks in the eternal saint world. For example, he had personally set up a magic array for the eternal saint world. Because he did not have much knowledge in the field of formation, he had only casually set up the formation. However, his current strength was at the advanced ruler realm. Even if he had just casually set up the formation, in the divine beginning realm, no one would be able to break it by force. In addition, Jian Wushuang had left behind many puppet fighters for the eternal saint world. These puppet fighters were obtained by Jian Wushuang from the experts he had killed over the years, especially the 3 masters of the saint realm and the 3 rulers. There were dozens of them in their interspatial rings. He simply took out a few of them and placed them in the eternal saint world to ensure its safety. After leaving some tricks for the eternal saint world, Jian Wushuang left the eternal chaotic world in the eternal saint world and opened up several different passages in the eternal saint world. These passages could lead to several important places in the divine beginning realm. Of course, there were also spatial passages leading to the third heaven. In short, Jian Wushuang had left all the necessary things for a large sect. As for how far the eternal saint world could go with the things he left behind, he did not know. He could only rely on the descendants of the eternal chaotic world to do well. As for him, although he could protect the eternal saint world for now, if the crisis of the divine beginning realm was completely resolved in the future, he would take over the divine beginning realm again. His original body would certainly go to the deeper part of the eternal chaotic world to explore. He would at most pay a little attention to the divine beginning realm, let alone the eternal saint world. After everything was done, Jian Wushuang gave a few instructions to the white emperor and then returned to the eternal chaotic world. He had already sent most of his family and friends to the divine beginning realm. There was nothing left for him to miss in the eternal chaotic world. He came back with only one purpose, which was to hide in the ancient battlefield. It was the last opportunity left for him by his master, the Heaven Suppression Tablet. He had heard from the Xianxia Daoist that when the Heaven Suppression Tablet was born, more than a dozen rulers had participated in the competition, which had even led to the death of the ruler. When his master had not obtained the Heaven Suppression Tablet, his strength was only at the initial ruler realm. However, after obtaining the Heaven Suppression Tablet and completely refining it, his battle strength was actually close to that of a superior ruler. One could imagine how incredible the Heaven Suppression Tablet was. After knowing this, Jian Wushuang was also quite eager for the Heaven Suppression Tablet. However, he also knew that a treasure like the Heaven Suppression Tablet was not something that could be easily refined in a short period of time. Therefore, after he came to the eternal chaotic world, he did not pay attention to the Heaven Suppression Tablet. Until now, he had already settled down in the eternal chaotic world, and the three saint realms had been completely destroyed. At present, in the divine beginning realm, except for the sorcerer god's sect, which had yet to be destroyed, he did not know when the people from the Devil Cloud Star would come back, so he had nothing else to do. At this time, he returned to the eternal chaotic world and came to the Heaven Suppression Tablet. The gray stone tablet, which was nearly 30,000 feet tall, stood alone in front of Jian Wushuang. When he saw the Heaven Suppression Tablet again, Jian Wushuang's heart was still full of shock. He was even more shocked than when he first saw the Heaven Suppression Tablet under the guidance of Di Shirsan. When he first saw the Heaven Suppressing Tablet, he was still very weak. He had not even reached the peak of the eternal chaotic world. At that time, it was normal for him to not be able to see the truth of the Heaven Suppressing Tablet. However, now that he was standing at the top of the divine beginning realm, the Heaven Suppressing Tablet still gave him an extremely mysterious feeling that he could not see through. This was somewhat inconceivable.